Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good morning to all of you. On behalf of the organizing team, I would like to thank every one of you for coming to this event. We would also like to welcome scholars from Yayasan Tabung Haji, Permodalan Nasional Berhad, Malaysia Airlines Berhad, Malaysia Airports Holding Berhad, Yayasan TM, Yayasan Tenaga, and Project Ed. Welcome to Yayasan Khazanah Leadership Conference, the new generation of leadership making the difference in the community and country. We hope that this conference will provide you with insight and informative for your personal and development, as we have lined up very interesting talks and sharing sessions. To better enjoy what we have planned for you today, please turn off your mobile phone or keep in silent mode. Thank you. Let me first introduce you our program today. We'll start the opening address by Puan Intan, a keynote address from Scholars to Leaders by Yang Berbahagia Dato' Syahriza Rizwan, and we have a coffee break after that. At 10:30, we have a session with Mr. Yusof Hashim. 11:30, with Puan Siti Nurliza from MDEC, and we have lunch at 12:30 p.m. And we'll start back at 2:30 with Ms. Pixie Sigar. At 3:30, we'll start with Dr. Ashraf Iqbal, and we have a tea break at 4:30. And we continue at 4:45 with our alumni, 2 alumni. And finally, we have a dialogue session with our beloved managing directors, Sheikh Kamaru Bahrain. Well, it's so nice to see everyone in such a good mood today, no? And what will make your mood even better? So let's call on Puan Intan Zalila for our opening remarks.
Thank you, Haniza. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good morning, boys and girls, dear scholars, invited speakers, my team, and the rest of you. So I'm very, on behalf of YK, welcome to YK Leadership Conference. We've been running in for 5 times already, running cuts across every cities that we have where our scholars are. And this time around, it's in Kuala Lumpur, where we have scholars from, we do have a majority of you are from Watan Scholarship Program, Asia, also global. I think 4 of them are from global, and also from the invited speakers from other scholarship providers as well. Welcome to YK Leadership Conference, and a very good morning to each and every one of you. It is always an honor, always exciting to be here with the rest of the scholars. You know, I'm personally very, grateful to come here and spend this morning and Saturday with all 170-ish of you today. Are you feeling excited? What's in store for you for this time around? Yes. Very good. So that's the enthusiasm that I would like to hear. Of course, we do have quite an impressive lineup of speakers. We have Dr. Sharil with us in the morning. We have Yusof. We have Pixie, somebody from MDEC, and also our alumni, sharing their insights and views. But what's important for you to understand about your role as scholars and eventually become leaders one day. For my this welcome address, I have a few pointers that I would like to share with you, and I do hope my eyesight cooperate, because I forgot to hang on. Here it is. Okay, getting older by day. 1, understanding your scholastic pursuit. This scholarship is actually a privilege to you, because a lot of people, every year we do have this one window of scholarship application where people meeting minimum requirement would apply to us. It's usually happen in March. So this March alone, we have 3,000 plus people applying for our scholarship. And we do have only certain spots of scholarship to be awarded. And you are among the lucky ones. 3,000, and we're only down to only 30 Watan. And also 40 global. Imagine, we break a lot of hearts out there. But it warmed your heart because you got this particular scholarship in your hand. But this is such opportunities. So always remember that, when this is given to you, it's not given to you, it's given through you. There's a lot of other things that's expected of you to perform. Because, a lot of people are not getting this opportunity, but the opportunity is in your hand right now. So be the best that you could. Be the best that you could in academic as well, in the non-academic spheres as well. Of course, throughout the years, you'll be meeting with me, Kamarul, and also your respective scholarship managers during your SDP engagement. And a lot of the time, we will, harping around your neck saying that you need to do well in your academic. Because when you come in as a scholar, the expectation for you to do well in academic is very, very important. And being good in academic alone will not guarantee you a better future. You need to do well in other spheres as well, the non-academic ones, like being active in the extracurricular involvement, in sports, for example. So those are some of the beautiful things that you have done in the past during your school years. And we hope that it continues to happen during your university years and also your college years as well. And also to extend it beyond your academic years. When you start to work in institution, you need to continue doing that as well. So understanding that, you have a role. Sitting on your shoulder is a planet of responsibilities, guys. The responsibility that you need to carry ardently with you. Always remember that, when you come here as a scholar, there's a set of expectations that you need to achieve. And please do a reflection and always strive to be the best that you could in all the domains that you are in. So that's number one. Number two, be mindful of your state of being. Recently, we heard a lot of news. You have stories about people are not doing well purely because of their general state of being, their mental wealth, for example. They have this pang of anxiety, depression, so on and so forth. During my time, I don't know, I do not actually come across this often, but I think for the past 3-4 years, and these news keep creeping in the social media, and eventually in our ecosystem as well, and among our scholars as well. So this is very, very, we are very deeply concerned about this. So what you need to do is that, I'm sure that as scholars, you do have a set of challenges. That there's a CGPA that you need to achieve, second class upper, for example, CGPA 3.5, if you're not getting it, and you get letters from us, reminders, warnings, Hidayah, Diana, myself will go to you, and sit down with you. Of course, these are some of the challenges that you need to undergo. But as students, this is part and parcel of learning. There are episodes where you feel stressful, there are episodes where you feel, that you feel down. But I think what you need to do is to realize that we are here to give you that kind of a help. We are here to support you. Reach out to us. Reach out to YK, reach out to your scholarship manager, and reach out to university counselors if you do have this, concern that you have, and if you feel that some of your colleagues, some of your friends are undergoing such occasion. Okay? Be mindful of that. There's also a website it's about happy people, if I'm not mistaken. Please Google it up. It is actually a portal published by University of Berkeley where they talk about mental well-being, so on and so forth. I think it's a good platform, a good resource for you to really understand, how to sort of manage, how to be able to cope with the stress, the anxiety that you have, while undergoing your life as students or as scholars. That's number two. Number three, involvement and also activity. There's a lot of activities that are available in your respective universities and also your community. Some of you are staying outside, renting out. I need you to be involved in all those sorts of things, because learning does not only happen in class, it also happens outside of the class, in field, in swimming pool, for example, in surah, in madrasah. So do stuff that are very enriching to your soul, because this will develop you as a person. Because you need to remember, we are actually developing the next future leaders. Leaders not only be able to achieve a set of KPIs given to them, but leaders who are very, they know exactly what's happening around them. There are many, concerns and issues. There are surrounding the community. So they need to know, to understand, and at your own capacity, try to address them. So I think that's the reason why you need to continue doing so, even during your university years. And if you remember during the time when we interviewed you during stage 4, final stage interview, or even the third stage interview, you need to do some flashback, that we ask you about what are the recent community works that you do, because it has a bearing to in terms of our selection process. Because we are not only looking for somebody who are very good academically, but also people who are doing a lot more to himself, to the family, and also to the community. So when you are here in university, I believe there's a whole gamut of activities that you can actually involve yourself in. Do immerse yourself in those areas, in those activities, in those involvement, because that will enrich your soul and also you as a person. So that's number 3. Number 4 is actually about internalizing our core 3P leadership modules, the 8 competency. If I were to run a quiz today, would you be able to remember the 3 Ps? What's the first P? Quiet? Silence? Come on, guys. Can somebody just shout out the 3 Ps? Purpose? Yes, good. So 1, purpose. Number 2, people, good. And number 3, it's about you. Personality. So that's 3 Ps. And of course, I don't want to go into asking you the 8 competencies, because by now, guys, you should be able to internalize all these 8 competencies. But fret not, there will be occasion, you'll be attending the series of training program that we have helped to develop you to really understand and inculcate these particular 8 competencies. Do so, and please attend those programs that we have helped develop to develop for your own leadership development program. Okay, so please internalize this. We are very big in terms of developing you as the next generation of leaders, and we feel the 3 Ps, which talks about purpose, which talk about your personality traits, which talk about your people traits, are very, very crucial. So go through these sets of program, and inshallah you'll be developed to become the person that we hope you become one day. So that's internalizing our core competencies. And my last point would be making the difference. Now, I mentioned earlier on to you that this scholarship is only given to the selected few. Okay? I remember that every time, because we are very blessed to have this system that sort of, this system that help us to funnel through the application. But I always been given the task, the hardest task, I believe, that it stops with, that always revolves around me pushing the reject button. 3,000 of people applying, and they are all writing fantastic personal statement about why the scholarship should be given to them. And of course, we have these funneling processes. And one of the processes that have been tasked to me is actually to push the reject button. I normally do this in the wee morning, at 2-ish, 3-ish, because it breaks my heart to say no to these fantastic individuals out there. But as I mentioned earlier on, we have a limited slots to be given out, to be awarded. And it's heartbreaking for me to do so. But of course, if I felt very, very warmed and happy to push the yes button, especially to those that we have actually seen throughout our first, third stage, fourth stage, and eventually for the 5th stage for Global Scholarship Program. So always remember that you are the privileged ones, the chosen one, and you have to do a lot more. And there's, a lot of people are actually expecting for you to do wonders, not only to yourself, to the family, as well as community. So please go out and touch other people's life. So that's the most important thing. I like also to touch on, by now, our scholar Nelson from Soton, he's doing such a wonderful stuff. He's so grateful to be given this opportunity, and what he has done, he has actually created this knowledge for free. He himself, not started working, also a recipient of scholar, but starting to actually provide opportunity in terms of scholarship for the unfortunate few. by doing some crowdfunding, so on and so forth. But I think what he has created is actually he created a movement, guys. Hence, he started with having a dream. A dream, he started that particular motion with the feeling of gratefulness. When he felt grateful, he started to have a dream, the dream of to help others. And then he created this knowledge platform, the KIFFF. And then he created a movement. Hence, we have participants from the Project Ed. It's actually an extension of what he has already started. So please, start with feeling grateful, start to have a dream of helping others. And inshallah, things will come to your way. I think that's pretty much what I would like to share with you today. And I'm sure that, over times, I'll be sharing with you, good examples, success stories of what our scholars are capable of doing in the future. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I hope you have a very, very meaningful and eventful day today. And I hope that this will be a very good learning experience for all of you as well. So thank you so much for your attention, and thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Puan Intan, for that wonderful and inspiring remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, now let us start with the program today. Without further ado, to introduce our keynote address, I would like to call upon Iqbal Harif Liang, our Watan scholars who reads law in University of Malaya, to introduce our keynote address speaker, Datuk Syahril Reza Rizwan.
A very good morning, I bid to all of you. A pleasant Saturday morning, I wish. My name is Iqbal Harif, and I'm a third-year law student currently under the Khazanah Watan Scholarship. And I'm pleased to introduce our keynote address speaker, Datuk Syahril Reza Rizwan. May I have a round of applause for Datuk Syahril? As all YK scholars should be aware of, Datuk Syahril Reza Rizwan is currently the new Managing Director of Khazanah Nasional Berhad, and formerly he was the CEO of the Employees Provident Fund, known as EPF. He is also currently serving as the chairman of the M+S Private Limited Company, and also the non-executive member of Pengurusan Dana Harta. Datuk Syahril has rich corporate experience in various fields, and to name one, for example, he was the managing director of MRCB, in which he was tasked with the enormous responsibility of overseeing the development of KL Central to progress into one of the main commercial centers in Kuala Lumpur itself. Besides that, he has also held non-executive member positions in various companies, and also has been called to the Malaysian Bar and the Bar of England and Wales, which as a law student, for non-law students, it means he's capable of practicing in Malaysia and in England as a lawyer itself. And in terms of educational background, Datuk Syahril has a Bachelor of Civil Law from Oxford University, and he also holds a Master of Arts from Cambridge University, bridging the Oxbridge rivalry on a different scale. So, therefore, without further ado, I'd like to invite Datuk Syahril Rizwan to begin the session. May we have a round of applause for Datuk Syahril? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Iqbal. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning to everybody here today, and especially to all our scholars. A warm welcome to our conference, and I really hope basically that you get a great experience out of today's events, the speakers that we have lined up for you, and hopefully inspire you in terms of your own personal journey. Today I've been asked to talk a bit about leadership and a bit about how, from students you become leaders. And I'll touch a bit about that, but I'll give you a bit of my background as well, so that you can understand my own personal life journey and where I came from. I'm actually I was actually born in Johor Bahru. My parents were stationed at the time. My father was a policeman, and my mum is actually a primary school teacher. But I had the fortune of actually growing up in KL when they were posted back to KL. And I did all my initial studying in St. John's here in KL, all the way until SPM. Whereupon I was actually fortunate. I'm actually a Petronas scholar. I received a Petronas scholarship basically to the UK. But I was also lucky in the sense that when I actually applied for my A-levels to the UK, I also received a scholarship from the college, which I applied to. So that allowed me to basically cut the amount of money I owed Petronas substantially, which was quite important. And I then furthered my studies basically to Cambridge and Oxford, I think, as you know. But what I found basically personally enriching for me was the fact that university was a fantastic time to actually try and experiment with new things. Those of you who I think come from the Malaysian education system, you know basically that the education system here tends to be a bit rigid in terms of basically what you can do, how they tend to perceive students and what you're supposed to do with your lives. But university basically gave me that opportunity to actually go out and do all kinds of things. So from sports, when traditionally I was actually not a sports person at all in my school days here in KL, I actually represented my college in things like rowing and cricket, in water polo, sports which I never actually done before, but university gave me that opportunity to do so. I did theatre, I did things like debating, all experiences which really are not available when you're just basically a secondary school student. And that's why whenever I talk to students, whenever I talk to young people who are in university, I always encourage them, right? Take that opportunity when you're in university. It's not just about studying. The studying is relatively important. I think it's important to get a good grade. It's important to basically to fulfill your own academic potential. But it's actually much more important during your university years to actually fulfill the other potentials that you may not even realize you have. Whether it's sports, whether it's drama, whether it's theatre, whether it's debates, whether it's basically public speaking, whether it's community service, everybody should take that opportunity during your university years to actually branch out and do stuff. And the reality basically is that that's really the best time to do it because, and let's be honest, right, I was a university student as well, right? Formal lectures and actual work you have to do really only takes up about 4 to 5 hours of your day. Let's be honest, right? I know all of us, when we were university students, we used to complain that it's a very tough life, it's hard work. But in reality, we all know, most of the time it's because we were pretty lazy and we just didn't get around to doing things proactively. But if you actually look at how much time you actually spend on your studying, right? It's only about 4 to 5 hours a day, right? Wait until you get to working life, right? You'll have no time to do anything else. So that's really the best time to try and do all these things. We have speakers here today. Yusuf was coming up to me, basically going to talk about traveling. And traveling is also a great example of what you can do with your time. Right? As university students, basically you have that opportunity to fulfill some of the potential that you may have in terms of exposure to other cultures, to other things. Right? I took the opportunity basically to do what a lot of students who study overseas did. Right? Just grab a backpack and travel. Right? You go to Europe, you go to the US, you do it cheap, you do it student style. And I encourage all of you to do the same thing as well. Right? Those of you who are living here and studying in Malaysia, right, you have fantastic opportunities to do that traveling in the region as well. And traveling is, I think, one of the best ways really for you to realize what you want to do with your life going forward. It gave me that sense of understanding, right? What was my place in the world? Really, what was the world around me, the other cultures, how people work in other countries as well. And that combined with, and I'm sure you guys are doing it as well, the internships, the attachments that you do as a student, I think gives you and prepares you really for the life ahead of you. Because leadership is not something that you just learn. Leadership isn't really just about what you pick up on the way to a corporate job or basically in terms of what you do as a student activist or student leader. Leadership is also about your self-actualization and your self-realization of who you are as a person. And the only way you can do that really is to fully understand and be aware of your own strengths and weaknesses. The best way to do that really is to actually move outside of that comfort zone, to do things basically that you haven't done before, and to actually explore relationships with people, in settings and in circumstances which normally you would not actually bother to do. And that's why, for those of you in this room, right, if you feel that you have a comfortable life in university, if you feel that basically what you're doing in university today is within what your abilities and your potential is, then I suggest basically that maybe you're not pushing yourself hard enough. Right? Go out, join a society, do an activity which you know nothing about, which basically you never dreamt that you would potentially do or you may have an interest in. And the whole idea really is that university gives you that opportunity to challenge yourself as a person, to do different things, to get different experiences, and really to expand, I think, the scope of your own consciousness in terms of basically what potentially life is all about for you. I had friends who, during their university years, basically felt that they were destined for a particular career path. But when they actually pushed themselves in terms of those experiences, discovered basically a different path for themselves. Some of them basically, instead of moving towards a corporate job, ended up essentially in social NGOs. And finding basically, I think, a career path or basically a development path for themselves which made more sense for them as a person as well. The worst thing you could do for yourself really is to try and just be yet another corporate leader. Right? It is not a path which is suitable for everybody. And that's why I say basically that university is about that time in your life when you really try to do self-actualization, when you try to understand and be aware of what really motivates you, what drives you as a person. You guys as a generation are much luckier than the people of my generation. You have much more choices, you have much more information at your fingertips. When I applied to university, we had no internet, we had no resources to actually let us know what universities to apply to, what courses to apply to. And it was a bit of guesswork on our part. I used to joke with my friends in Cambridge that the only reason why I chose the college I went to in Cambridge was because when I looked at a map, it was equidistant between the supermarket and the cinema, right? And that's true, because in those days, you had no information, you had no idea, right? All you had to do was basically look at a map and kind of figure out, okay, that's kind of where I want to go, right? So you guys are lucky. You live in the internet age. You live in an age of big data, of Facebook, social media. You have the resources really, I think, to further expand basically your own capabilities and what you believe should be done. Now, when we look basically back on our careers, right, and I sit here today basically at the age of 48, and I've been blessed to have had a fairly exciting career. And you think back about what were really the key juncture points, right, where effectively you make the choices that lead you to where you are. You realize basically that those choices really came about when you were forced to choose whether you wanted to stay in your comfort zone and keep doing what you wanted to do, or whether you wanted to take a risk with your life and a risk with basically your own personal development and do something completely different. I started out as a lawyer in '94 when I came back from doing my master's and my bar in the UK. And I was a very successful lawyer. I was basically, within my first year in the law firm, I was already the highest earning law associate in terms of basically fees. I had ringgit 1 million of billings in my first year as a law associate. But after 2 years, I decided basically that, was this really going to be the life for me? I could have stayed there, been comfortable, been a partner in 5 years. But after 2 years, I decided that, no, I'll try something else different. I moved into oil and gas. Something completely different, had no idea what it was all about. I had to learn from the start. And of course, this was just before the Asian financial crisis, so it was a very tumultuous time towards the end of my 2 years in oil and gas. And then for oil and gas, I moved into Dana Harta, which was basically set up to rescue the banks, financial services, which had failed during the Asian financial crisis. Again, moving to an industry and moving to basically a job which you had no experience, you had no formal training, but for which basically, I felt it was exciting times, take a risk, let's move on, right? And throughout basically my career, I've had essentially those opportunities. And those opportunities will present themselves to you. When those opportunities come, I think you need to decide for yourself, are you the type of person who feels that you get growth basically by trying on new challenges? Or are you comfortable basically with where you are? And my suggestion to you basically is that especially during the early part of your careers, when you're younger, especially when you're in university, when you're moving to your first jobs, right? Think about that very carefully. It's very easy, I think, for all of us to just stay in the same place, get the next salary increment, get the next promotion, right? It's much harder for us to say, let's move completely to a new industry. But my challenge to you, basically, I think, is that sometimes taking the road which is more perilous, which is a bit riskier, which I think carries with it some semblance of personal risk in terms of what you're doing, is sometimes better. Because again, we only grow by taking on new challenges. In university today, right, I'm sure some of you are faced with subject choices, with the choices you need to make in terms of what you want to do with your careers or with your academic careers. And again, I would like to ask you to think for yourself, right? Is it better for me, probably safer for me from an academic point of view, to just stay with what I already know? Or is it better for me, I think, for the development of my own self as a person, to try something different, try something new? Today, when we look at employers, and as employers, when we look at prospective candidates to join us as employees, employers today are not just looking at what you've done, what does your CV say, or basically what is the academic transcripts that you have. They also like to go into a bit more detail, right? Especially for the better positions, especially when you're looking at the senior level, graduate trainee type programs. They're looking for the kind of characters who will grow, who will adapt, and who basically have that sense of adventure, of being able to actually take on risks and have initiative. Right? And you don't get that from playing safe. You get that by taking risks. So when you actually go to those interviews, right, you have to be able to demonstrate that as a character or as a person, you're the type of person really who is willing, I think, to take on challenges. You can demonstrate that you have taken on challenges which were outside of your comfort zone or your knowledge zone, right? And you were able to essentially deal with it. Because the jobs of tomorrow are all about adaptability. They're all about essentially how you as a person can keep adapting yourself, adapt to basically the changes that's happening around you. Because every single industry, every single company in Malaysia and the world today essentially has to keep reinventing itself all the time. And the best leaders for the future are those who can also reinvent themselves. I've gone from law to oil and gas, to financial services, to infrastructure and property, building transport hubs, to managing essentially the nation's largest pension fund, and now basically to managing the country's sovereign wealth fund. Right? So if you think about it, basically, it's a career, it's basically a CV with no discernible theme running through it, other than the theme that this is a person who has adaptability, this is a person who basically is able to learn very, very quickly on the spot. And those are really the characteristics that going forward, employers, organizations are looking for from their leaders. That ability to learn rapidly, learn on the job, learn on the spot, adapt basically to circumstances, adapt yourselves, adapt the companies that you're working in, and rise to those challenges. So the takeaway which I hope you get really from listening to me today is basically for yourself to challenge what you're doing with your lives today. Right? I know most of you are already in second or third year. You're in a nice groove in university. You've got your routines down pat. You can get away with doing 4 to 5 hours of work a day. You can Netflix the rest of the day away. Right? If I had Netflix during my university days, that's what I'd be doing. But I suggest basically that you actually take that extra time, right, that you have. Right? Find something challenging. Find something you've never done before. Challenge yourself. Try and do it. That really, I think, will show to you what kind of person you really are, whether you're the type of person who can do those things differently, who can rise to those challenges, and more importantly, I think, also demonstrate to the people around you that you are able to build a network of friends, of associates, pull them together on projects, pull them together in organizations where you have a leadership position, and inspire people basically to work with you and to work on better things. When you finish university, right, you don't necessarily have to join the workforce straight away, although we do kind of encourage it. Right? Take those 3 months that you have in between your end of your work, end of your student life and joining the workforce. Do something different. Join a social enterprise. Join a charity. Right? Travel. Right? The point, I think, basically, is that before you enter into the 8 to 5 grind of working life, right, you have to reach a point where you actually understand yourself better. Only by understanding basically your strengths and your weaknesses are you really then able to, I think, contribute effectively towards your own development as a person. When I look at the people that I lead in organizations, from EPF to Khazanah today, one of the key things that we'd really like to see basically is how self-aware someone is about themselves. There's a whole battery of personality tests that you can do, and some of you have gone through it, right? And in organizations, we love to do these things, right? You love to do tests to determine what the personality you have. But what's more important really is actually the discussions that you then have with the person around those tests. Whether or not they actually believe that those tests reflect who they are. So when we talk about leadership in the corporate world today, leadership is about self-realization, knowing basically how you can capitalize on your strengths and how you can effectively cover your weaknesses, because none of us are perfect, right? So leaders in corporate world today basically need to build teams where the team members essentially are not just about accentuating the strength of the leader, but more importantly also helping the leader to overcome their own weaknesses, right? So the best leaders today really are those who, like I said, are adaptable. They are self-aware about their strengths and weaknesses. They are not worried about essentially being forthright or truthful about those weaknesses either. Because they know basically that the best way to be a leader today is to actually build a team around them that actually helps with those weaknesses. So that self-confidence really is one of the key parts that I'd like to also touch on, which is really the confidence that you have in yourself, that not only about your strengths, but that you're able to admit to people that you have weaknesses, that you actually realize those weaknesses, you're working on it, but more importantly, you can build networks or teams around you to actually help with those weaknesses. Now, I'd like to leave you before we get to the question and answer session, basically with some thoughts around what's really important in this new Malaysia that we have today, especially the Malaysia after the elections of May the 9th. What's I think important really is this realization, I think, that among the public and among, I think, the market today, that the values that need to be upheld in terms of basically whether it's integrity, whether it's essentially whether it is corporate social responsibility, those values are much more important today than perhaps the product or services that you deliver. So when you look at companies, when you look at organizations, they are much more focused today about building trust in themselves as an organization, right? Because the products and services that they deliver basically are only as good as the trust that their market or basically their customers or the public have in them. When you look basically in the US or Europe today, you are seeing a lot of debate today about privacy issues, about data privacy, about essentially how companies essentially are managing the data of their customers, right? And you can tell essentially that as companies like Facebook or Google are starting to lose trust from the public because of the way their data practices have been done. Companies like Apple have been capitalizing on that by emphasizing basically their handling of data and handling of customer information. So the issue of trust in a big data world basically will get more and more important. It's one of the issues which you as future leaders will have to think about, because that trust is not just about the corporate branding, but as you as individuals as well. When you think about basically how do you move up and how do you get recognized for your efforts, it's also about your own trust that the organization and other people have in you. It's about your own personal branding as well. And that's about being consistent in how you act and how you talk to others. What you want to have basically, I think, in terms of perception of you as leaders, basically is that from your own personal branding point of view, people who deal with you understand that when you say you're going to do something, you will do it. And when basically they talk to you about an opinion that you have, the opinion that you're giving them basically is your opinion. It is basically what you're saying. It doesn't matter whether your opinion is right or wrong, but you're consistent in terms of basically how you approach things and how you basically manage the situations that you're in. So that personal trust and that personal branding is something which takes a lot of effort to build. And it's something which basically starts from university days. Because the people that you're with in university today are going to be your fellow leaders, you're going to be your business associates, they're going to be the people that you deal with in your working life as well. So it's important for you to start building your personal brand from the time you're in university, and in terms of basically creating that trust and those bonds with your fellow students. Today, where I'm sitting in Khazanah, when I look at the landscape of the corporate leadership around me, it's filled with the people that were in university with me, or people who are essentially the same generation, right? So these are people that you essentially build your relationships with, your personal trust, your bonds, right? Your ability to do business in the future from the days of your university, right? So when I look out today at PNB, the CEO of PNB is Abdul Rahman Ahmad, who was a contemporary of mine, same year as me in Cambridge. The CEO of EPF today, Tunku Ali Zakri, was actually my classmate in secondary school. And you look at a number of the companies, the banks, right? The generation that grows up with you to become corporate leaders are your generation. Right? So it's very important. Don't be an isolationist. Don't be a hermit, right, in university. Right? Make sure you're out there building up your personal networks, not just in your university, but with your contemporaries in other universities, in other countries as well. Because that personal network is what will carry you in terms of your own leadership journey as you move basically from academics to the start of your working life to basically a corporate leadership position later on. And that's important. I think a lot of you probably don't realize how important it is that those bonds that you forge in terms of people you actually do debating with or do theater with or, you know, row a boat together with in university actually become your friends. They become basically your associates. They become people that you will be working with, that you actually are doing business with in the future as well. And that's why when I talk about trust and branding, right, it starts really today. It starts earlier. It starts when you actually enter university, right? And if you haven't put enough effort into that, I think that's something you need to think about as well, about really understanding how people perceive you, right? Because that's important. That perception of how your friends, who are later going to be your business network, perceives you even in university days will carry over into university as well. Okay. And it's very, you know, it's sometimes a bit simplistic, but there are some people that, you know, I used to not like in university. I still don't like today, right? And still don't do business with them. So the reality basically is that humans are driven by emotion, right? We are, you know, fundamentally fairly simple, emotionally driven people, right? And those perceptions or those relationships that you forge or you form with people in your early days tends to carry over. So you tend to think that people don't change, right? So we'll move to question and answers, but those are things which I think I'd like you to really think about in terms of your own personal journey, your own leadership journey, about adaptability, about your personal branding, pushing yourself outside your comfort zone. These are things really which university is the best time to do it, right? So take that opportunity, have fun in university, right? Study the 4 hours a day that you need to do, and use the rest of the time really to push yourself and to do different things. So thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions.
Hello. Testing. Thank you very much, Dr. Sharif, for the very, very insightful keynote speech. I'm also a Johor Bahru boy, but I think it's in summary of what Dr. Sharil has expounded to us, is that the experiences and the learning process, the learning curve through the various activities that we join in university is essentially what will mold us as leaders in the future, whether we consciously or subconsciously are aware of this. And it is because of this sense of leadership that we gain from universities is what Datuk Sharil defined as a self-actualization of who you are as a person. So that emphasized the importance of your involvement in university activities and the various things that you venture into, stepping outside of your comfort zone and getting to know many more things outside there in order to mold yourself as a holistic and capable leader in the future. And Datuk Sharil also stated that the best leader right now is one that is adaptable and is capable of learning rapidly. So I think that in a globalized era like this, where everything is in a very fast-paced, borderless communication and everything like that, the competition is upon all of us to step up in this sense, to learn as much as possible. Even, for example, speaking from my personal capacity, as a law student, I try to expose myself to data protection and technological stuff which law students are not exactly, inclined to understand. But this also because of, you have to be adaptable and to adapt to the current situations in this country. So, and one thing which caught my attention from Datuk Sharil is the realization from the transition from, I would say, the old Malaysia to what we call Malaysia Baru, is the realization that values of integrity are much more important than the products or services provided, as quoting Datuk Sharil himself. So I think that as scholars and through the values that Yayasan Khazanah has tried to impart us along the way of our scholarship process, it is important that regardless of whatever field that we venture into in the future, whatever leaders in whatever capacity that we carry, integrity should be the core element in everything that we do, whether in decisions, in exercising corporate management and everything like that. Integrity is what defines a leader truly as one being of a good leader or a bad leader, if Datuk Syahril agrees with me on that. And lastly, Datuk Syahril also emphasized on the necessity of developing personal branding and personal networking, because in the long run, in the end, these are what will define you and distinguish you from others, but the personal networking will also be what reconnects you with many other people in the working industry in the future. So without further ado, I'm sure that the crowd has a lot of questions to direct towards Datuk Syahril. But before we begin in the question and answer, I see that there are a few mic stands around the hall. So if you have any question, please step forward to the mic and address the question to Datuk Syahril. So any questions from the floor? Yes, please.
Hi, okay. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Shakira, and currently I'm studying medicine in IMU. Just started my degree last August. So I believe that every one of us have challenges, especially when we just step into degree. And like from what I get from your speech just now, that we really need to learn how to move outside of our comfort zone. But however, what does actually, how do you get inspired to move outside of your comfort zone when in this world we have so many people who are so outstanding and like a lot of challenges coming in with studying, which is getting really hard, and also with a lot of limitations around us? Thank you.
Yeah. I think it's a fair point. I think and I'll share with you my experience. When I first entered university as well, it was a very nervous time, right? You come in, it's a new environment, you have to get to grips with a new style of studying, because university is very different from A-levels or secondary school, right? A lot of it is basically work that you have to do by yourself. But the challenge, I think, for everybody to look at really is, how do you make yourself more efficient so that you do free up that time to do other things? I think it's easy as students, and I know a few of my friends, and even myself at times, right? You get into this cycle of thinking, oh, it's so difficult, why is it so difficult, I have to spend so much time studying. But what you should really look at essentially is being disciplined about how much time you spend studying, right? Set aside that time, be very focused on studying during that time, but still leave yourself enough time to actually try and challenge yourself and do different things. Now, medicine, of course, I know, requires a bit more time than other courses or other subjects, which might give you a bit more time to work with. But even during my time in university, even the medical students, those who were really good at managing their time, found opportunities to actually do other things. And some of them have become really successful leaders. One of my friends, Suhuang, was with me in Cambridge, basically is now one of the leading cancer researchers in the world. But she found time, basically, despite her schedule on studying and everything else, to actually do a lot of social work, a lot of social activities as well. So the challenge really, I think, is that, because you will find that in life, as you go on to become, whether you become a doctor or essentially whether you become a corporate leader, right? Work will encompass or consume a lot of your time. But at the same time, you must be able to manage your work-life balance. You have to be able to manage basically the amount of time you spend on what you're doing as a function of work, and still leave enough time for yourself for your own personal development. So one of the things which, as leader at Khazanah, what I always emphasize with my employees at Khazanah today basically is, work is work, right? But you have to really focus and be as efficient as possible so that you can finish your work by about 6, 7 o'clock and have time for yourself to do other things, right? So it's no different in university life as well. Find a way to finish your work with enough time to give you a few hours in the evening, or basically in the morning before you do before you start your studies, and use that time productively. Go and do a sport, go and join an organization, right? Do some social work, right? But the whole idea basically is to push yourself and to challenge yourself. It's actually part of the comfort zone to say that, I have to spend so much time studying and therefore I'll spend all my time studying, right? It's a way also sometimes subconsciously for us to stay within the comfort zone by using the fact that we don't have enough time as an excuse to not do new things or not to try different things. So the challenge really is, I think, to force yourself to find the time and then use that extra time to actually do something different with your lives. So that's, I think, part of the challenge, and I sympathize. Yes, sometimes work gets very busy in university, but the challenge, I think, to you as a person and as a future leader is really how do you efficiently use your time to actually address the work and still find time to do other things.
You want to ask first?
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Okay, my name is Sharul. I'm majoring in management and business at the University of Reading, Malaysia. So I want to ask, because I believe that many of us as scholars are involved in student societies and students club. So I want to ask your tips, because you have vast experience in leadership roles. Because in management field, we find that managing people is the most challenging part than managing a machine. So what are your tips in managing people, maybe perhaps their motivation, so that it aligns with the organization mission and vision? Thank you.
Yeah. Well, a lot of you are basically probably active in your own student organizations or taking leadership in student councils and stuff like that. There's a few things I think as a leader you need to think about. One basically is, do you yourself fully understand the mission or the vision of the organization you're leading? So whether it's basically a student council, whether it's a club or a society, right? Be very clear what is the objective first of basically that organization you're leading. And then you need to decide essentially whether you understand clearly enough the motivations of the people around you. Right? Why are they doing that? Why are they a fellow committee member, for instance? Right? I'll be frank, some of them are there to pad out their CVs, because always nice to have on your CV a few leadership positions. But some of them are genuinely interested in terms of that organization. Right? You'll find that in working life is the same as well. There are some people who are genuinely buying into the vision or mission of the organization. There are some people who are there because it's a nice position, I'm happy to just sit there. So as a leader, if you're the type of leader who really wants to take the organization somewhere, you have to essentially identify who are the people who are clearly motivated about that organization, what it's doing, its purpose, right? And essentially use those people to spearhead any changes or any projects that you're doing in the organization. You will inevitably have some people who are hangers-on, right? Or basically just followers, right? And those guys are useful as well, right? They're not going to give you any real ideas about what to do or what projects to change or anything of that sort, but they're useful because you sometimes need extra bodies to actually do the donkey work, right? So as a leader, you have to identify those who are going to drive basically the organization, those who can do their part and do their share to do the work, right? And be very upfront to yourself in identifying and understanding what motivates these people, right? So for those people who are there because nice to put on my CV later, community member of the society, right? Fine, right? They're already there, they got elected somehow, right? So never mind, just make use of them, right? There are those who are there because they really love the work that's been done. Use those guys to really spearhead the projects and everything that you do, right? And you'll find, all of you will find basically in life as well, that when you are passionate about something, when you really want and have an interest in an organization or the activities that it's doing, you'll find that you end up doing most of the work, right? So later when you join a company or a job, you'll discover basically that the better you are at the job, the more work you end up having to do, because the best leaders recognize those people who are really motivated, right, and give them all the work to do, right? So sometimes it's a burden, but it's also an opportunity for you to essentially show and shine in terms of basically that capability that you have, right? So if you're not the president of the society, you are the committee member, but you love what the organization is doing, right? Raise your hand, volunteer to do more work. And remember, it's all about your personal branding. People will remember the type of person that you are, right? So they remember that, hey, that guy, I remember him from university, right? Very passionate, a lot of initiative, likes to do stuff, and that branding carries with you throughout the rest of your working life as well.
My name is Anissa. I'm a second medical student. So my question for you is, as a leader yourself, what is your goal that you want to achieve? And how do you evaluate, what goal do you want to have for yourself and make sure that it is actually achievable? Because for me personally, I think I'm quite ambitious when it comes to my goals. So how do you make sure that you set a goal and that goal is actually achievable, especially when it comes to organizations? Thank you.
Yeah, I think goal setting is important. I think it's important for you to, and this is the part I talked about self-realization and self-actualization, right? You have to also understand the limits or basically the barriers that you yourself will face as a person or as a leader, and your organization will also face. Right? So when you're leading an organization, sometimes it's actually good in the same way that you challenge yourself to step outside your comfort zone, to also challenge that organization to do the same. So to give you an example, basically, when I stepped into the position as CEO of EPF, EPF was still very much a manual organization, right? So the challenge I set to the organization really was to step outside its comfort zone and move to the digital era and become an internet-based organization. And today, I was CEO there for 5 years. At the end of my 5 years, when I moved to Khazanah, EPF, 80% of transactions were now online. With the largest online organization in Malaysia in terms of membership, in terms of accounts. So the whole idea basically is, in the same way that I challenge you to think about moving outside of your own comfort zone, when you become a leader of an organization, right, think about doing things which the organization has not done before, right? Push it ahead. And do it essentially incrementally. To give you an example, basically, when in my university days, when I was the secretary for the Cambridge University Malaysian Singapore Association, right, we put together the first ever musical theatre play that was done by the organization, and it was really about pushing the boundaries of what the organization can do. It's very easy to become the president or the secretary and just keep doing the same thing, right? So you come in, what did the guys last year do? Okay, we'll do the same thing, right? But the challenge is to always improve, to always push yourself to do something different, something new. Sometimes it will fail, right? Sometimes it's a great idea, but the execution is not so good. But the idea basically is that if you persevere, and the next company that takes after you sticks with the idea and executes better, right? At least you've started something new, and the organization can move on and become and grow and essentially advance further. So it's really about, you have to set an ambitious goal when you come in, right? To do something new, to do something different. Even though your people may tell you, or your committee may tell you that you've never done that before, how do we go about doing it, right? But the challenge to yourself and to your friends, basically, to do something new is in itself, I think, very rewarding. Right? The first time you do it may suck, right? And honestly, I think the first time you ever do something new, generally speaking, never goes off, 100% how you think it's going to go off, right? But the point basically is to persevere. I keep doing the iterations, keep doing it until it gets better and better. And that's how new things are developed. That's how new products or services are developed. They always develop out of a new idea by challenging yourself to do something different.
Okay, hi Dato. Okay, my name is Amirul. Currently, I'm doing PhD in Business Management in Branding, UiTM. Okay, my question is, do you think that the concept of personal branding is commonly misunderstood because some people might use that particular platform to oversell themselves in the market?
Yeah. So personal branding, yes. What you're saying basically, I think refers to the concept basically that, for one better, it's actually personal marketing, right? You go out and you market yourself as being, I can do this, right? Personal branding is more, you talk about brand values, it's more about what defines you as a person, right? So personal branding in my mind essentially is the perception, the real perception that other people have of you as a person and of your capabilities. And that's why, like I said, it's important that personal branding journey actually starts from your school days and even into your university days as well. It's about how you actually do your work. It's about how you interact with people. Because those interactions essentially form the basis of people's opinions about you, and that is your brand. Your brand is not what you tell someone you can do. That's your marketing, right? Your brand really is what people believe are your values. What people believe basically is the core of who you are. It's the same with any organization as well. Right? An organization may have a marketing plan in terms of marketing their products or services or trying to market who they are. But people's perception of what they really are, that's the actual brand of the organization. Right? And that's why a lot of organizations today spend a lot of effort and time trying to change people's perceptions about who they are. Because perceptions aren't reality. Right? If people believe that you're the kind of person who's difficult to work with, that you are overly dominant in discussions, that you basically never give people a chance, right? And that is the reality that people build up around you. And that's why it's important that you must have your own self-realization about who you are, what you do, and sometimes more importantly, how people actually perceive you. Right? Get feedback from your friends. Ask your friends, hey, how do actually people think about what I'm doing, right? About my style, about my leadership, right? And make those changes which you feel are necessary. Because again, I want to can't emphasize strongly enough, basically, that a lot of what you do at university, in terms of that brand, about the relationships that you build, are what carries you into your working life. and the people who work around you, and the people who later be essentially your counterparts in other organizations or your fellow leaders as well.
Okay, sorry. My name is Sharifah Sarah. I'm studying medicine. Good morning, Dato'. Thank you so much for the wonderful speech. My questions, I have two, and they lie on a very personal note, mostly out of curiosity. The first question would be, during your university years, do you regret not doing anything? One. And two is, what would be your favorite book? That's all. Thank you.
Okay, well, during my university years, I think probably the biggest regret I have today, basically, is that I didn't travel enough, right? So what I did during my university years, especially during the term breaks, right, you had the long holidays, was basically I tried to do, I think what a lot of people did. They did attachments, they did internships, right? And I probably did, in my mind now thinking back, probably too many internships. Could have cut off half those internships and gone traveling instead. I probably had a much more enjoyable student life. So that's my own personal regret. Because when I think back about the internships, right, some of the internships which I went to in those companies didn't really have much for me to do. I ended up playing table tennis half the time with my other interns, right? So when you guys are going out there doing your internships, right, be careful, right? Don't just do an internship because you want to pad out your CV, right? Which honestly I did because I thought it would look good on the CV, right? Did internship in ICI, did internship in accounting firm, right? An internship in an accounting firm was the worst thing in my life, I tell you, because I discovered how boring accounting was. So it turned me off accounting completely forever. So maybe it was useful in that sense, but like I said, right, don't be too concerned about padding out your CVs with so many internships, right, trying to impress your future employers, right? Your future employers will be just as impressed if you tell them that I spent 3 months traveling in Africa doing some charity work or doing some social work, right? And I think that's the one thing probably that I do regret. Didn't spend enough time doing that kind of stuff. Was too concerned about, trying to impress future employers with a whole bunch of, now that I think back, quite useless internships. In terms of books, I read a lot. So I tend to read, even today, probably about a book a week at least, sometimes more. But I read across a whole bunch of subjects, whether it's fiction, non-fiction. So to say that you have a favorite book is sometimes a bit difficult in terms of, because books tend to influence you from time to time, right? It influences your way of thinking. So if I maybe answer that question about what book in the last few months I've been reading, which I thought has been quite influential, or which I thought was quite interesting, is this book by Professor Daniel Kahneman. He's a Nobel laureate for economics. Basically, it's a book called Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, which talks about how human behavior drives economic decisions, right? And how basically you can use some of those principles to influence how people think. Right. This whole area of behavioral economics basically is quite interesting to me at this point in time. I think basically because I think a lot of companies, a lot of organizations are trying to think through how they use behavioral economics together with big data to try and influence people and how to influence policy making and stuff like that. So that's today, I think, something I'm quite interested in. But of course, over the years, there's been plenty of books to read. And what I suggest to you basically is actually to develop a habit of reading outside your comfort zone, right? Pick up a book in a field that you've never tried before and just read it, and you learn something new every time you do something like that. So that's what I actually would encourage you to do, right? So throughout the years, I've read books on everything from art history to philosophy to psychology, because you learn something new every time you pick up a book on something else that you don't know about. If all you ever do is read a lot of books on your particular field of study, medicine for instance, right, you'll have a very deep knowledge of a particular subject, but you may not have enough breadth of knowledge to actually make connections with other fields of study that could be useful for you in the future.
Hi, thank you, Dato'. My name is Fatin Nursada. I'm currently final year law student in IIUM. I have one question for you. So with the current changes in Malaysia, as Iqbal mentioned just now, Malaysia Baru, will Khazanah's mandate and focus shift together? What is the way forward for YK itself? We know that Khazanah has been investing on people. Sure, I'm in my final year and all of my friends here, colleagues here, already have like a few years to go, but will we be receiving juniors? Will Khazanah continue to invest in people? Thank you.
Yeah, the short answer to that is yes. I personally have always believed in spending resources on developing people. So While Khazanah itself will shift some of its focus in terms of how we do business, right, in terms of why we invest and all that. But our focus on people development and talent development stays the same, right? So YK will continue on its path. In fact, the discussion we're having in the YK leadership has also been how do we expand further, right, on the success of YK, and whether that includes, for instance, working with other charitable organizations. We already have a very good system in place to find and disburse scholarships. And maybe you could actually extend that to co-branding or co-sponsorship with other people who want to do the same thing but don't want to have the bother of setting up a whole new infrastructure to run scholarships, for instance, right? So these are things which I think, from my point of view, I think are interesting topics for discussion. I think the money that a country spends investing in education, investing in human talent development, basically is the best investment for the future. So when I look at the budget that was announced yesterday, I'm actually pretty happy to see that education still gets a huge chunk of the money, right? Now, of course, the question basically is that, do they spend it wisely? Do they use it effectively? That's a separate question. But I think the emphasis is there. The emphasis is basically that, that's really where the best investment can be made in terms of government money or government tax dollars, right? Is really in education, in personal development. So something like Khazanah as well. I think even as we shift our way of business, the commitment even to our Khazanah people internally is also that, in terms of how much we spend on developing our people will not change. And that I think will carry on.
All right. My name is Gracia. I'm from MMU final year student studying advertising. So talking about comfort zone, getting out of comfort zone, and also just now Mr. Sharul question about managing team members. As someone who's already on top there, one of the challenge is not only managing people but being leaders in the middle of leaders. So basically, when we are still student, yes, we still manage normal people, but eventually one day we will become a leader who also will lead another leaders. Because personally, I want to set up my own company one day, but my comfort zone keep telling me that I need to get people who are not really leaders, because if I get all in my team, when I initially set up, when everyone is members, it will be chaotic. So maybe we want to hear some tips on how to manage people when everyone are leaders. So like leaders managing leaders. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, again, like I said, I think what's important to understand when you're building a team, right, is we talk about leadership, right? I think people get confused between leadership and position, right? So even within a team of very highly motivated individuals with very strong personalities and very strong skill sets and leadership skill sets, right? There will always be one guy who's in charge, right? So when you think about it to yourself, right, and you're building that team in your future, your own company, or basically in your organization, as a leader, do you want to build a team full of people who are not going to challenge you in terms of your thinking or your position, because they are effectively, like I discussed just now in the other question, they're just followers and they're just basically just hangers on, right? Happy to just have a job, have a position, and do whatever you tell them to do, right? Or do you want to have a team of people who are very motivated, who will challenge you in terms of what you are suggesting or your decisions, right? Because it's actually better to have a team of very motivated individuals who are ambitious, who are driven, who will want to see success. Because that's the best way to ensure or to increase the chances of your own success or your company's success. Right? Yes, it's more difficult because you have to deal with more ego issues, for instance. You have to deal with more personality issues. Right? And eventually there will come a time when some of them will decide that I need to leave. Because if I want to if I want to take a leadership position for myself, right, I have to leave to find that. But you have to accept basically that this will happen, right? And even during my career, every time I built a team of very good people, very strong people, eventually, right, a few of them will leave. They'll move off to another company or they'll start something on their own because they feel basically that they can do it, right? They can be that leader themselves, which is fine, right? I've always felt basically that if somebody's going to leave me and they're leaving me to do something better for themselves, I've always had no problems with that, right? What it means basically is that you actually build people around you and advance them and make them better to the point basically that they're actually able to become a leader by themselves. So your job as a leader is to constantly develop people under you, right? It's constantly to create perversely an environment where the people become good enough that they leave you and do their own thing and they become successful at the thing that they're doing. Right? So when I look out in the corporate landscape today and I look at the leadership in a lot of the companies, quite a number of them are people who used to work for me, right? And who have advanced to the point basically where they felt that, and they'll come to me and they'll tell me that, look, I really enjoy working for you, but I can't move up any further working for you, which is fair because in any organization there's always basically just limited number of positions of leadership, right? And they move off to become a leader somewhere else. And to me, I always tell them, good luck to you. As long as you know why you're leaving for the right reasons. You're not just leaving because somebody's offered you a bit more money, right? You're actually leaving because it's a bigger position, more responsibility, then that's fine, right? So my suggestion to you basically is that when you're building a team, get the best people that you can, even if they're going to be a bit of a pain to manage because they're all, a bit more, sometimes a bit more ego, sometimes a bit more personality to manage. But you will find much better success in terms of actually results from whatever project you're doing. Right? And even if you can't retain half of them, that's fine. Just find the next set of people. That's the constant challenge of being a leader.
Hi, can I have one more question?
Before I proceed, Burhan, I'm so sorry to interject, but in consideration of time, I think we'll take 2 questions straight so that Dato' can answer them simultaneously. So first, Burhan, please, your question, and follow up with the next person who has the question. All right, okay, thank you.
Right. So hi, my name is Burhan. I'm studying medicine. Very good insight. Thank you. I would just relate to adaptability and efficient time management. How did you personally learn new fields in itself while currently working on your current field, like transferring from different sectors to different sectors? How did you do it? That's my question. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Aishwarya. I'm a second-year medical student from Newcastle University. Dato', I'm the vice president of the student association in my university, and as a team, we have visions and goals that we want to achieve. And whenever we bring up something new, as you said, the support isn't as much as we expect. So my question for you is, how do we decide if the goals that we have is feasible, as well as how do we effectively let people know what we are trying to achieve and how is it going to benefit them? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll take the first question. I think in terms of adaptability and learning, that's something I think you have to develop as a person, which is basically that willingness to challenge yourself, to learn something new all the time, right? So in your universities, it starts really by moving outside your comfort zone, by really talking to other people, maybe even attending lectures of subjects which have really nothing to do with you, right? So it's really about getting to the habit of learning something new all the time. So when I started my career, and I moved, say, for instance, from law to oil and gas, I spent basically the first 2 weeks just reading everything I could, basically on the technicalities of oil and gas. Not just about the business of oil and gas, but even technical, essentially the engineering, the design of rigs, and everything else. So that really helped. When I moved to MRCB as a CEO, right, from doing financial businesses, and getting involved in running a construction and infrastructure company, right? Again, the first 2 to 3 weeks of my time there, I spent talking to my engineers, understanding civil engineering, mechanical engineering, and learning basically about all that. So my personal concept really has always been that as a leader, right, you're not supposed to know 100% of the technicalities of any particular subject, but you need to have learned enough to roughly about the 85-90% level that you can actually have a meaningful conversation with the people, the technical experts under you. When I joined EPF, I spent 1 week essentially just doing a crash course in advanced mathematics, statistical regression and analysis, so that essentially I could do the quantitative number crunching required for fund management, right? So it's about your own adaptability to those circumstances and situations whereby you have to demonstrate the ability and willingness to learn on the spot, learn new things, right? Put in the hours up front so that really when you start having those discussions with basically the more technically proficient team members, right, they feel basically that they're talking to someone who is not just about leadership position, but can actually talk to them in a meaningful way about their actual day-to-day technical work that they do. And that's important, I think, because the team members need to have confidence in you as a leader that essentially you're making good decisions based on data and based on actual technical experience. Right? And on the question basically in terms of how do you actually manage your team to convince them to do something new, one of the things that I found has always been useful is actually to talk to them first about the benefits of doing something new. Don't talk to them about the challenges or the difficulties, right? Sell them on the idea that by doing this new thing, right, this is how we're extending ourselves as an organization. This is the kind of new benefits we bring to the members, how it will basically help in terms of the perception of that organization or the leadership of the organization as well, right? Because you have to essentially do your part to convince them that there is actually a real tangible benefit in doing this something new, right, beyond just yet another project, just for the sake of doing it. Right? And once basically you understand how to bring those new projects or those new things you want to do into the realm of what motivates your team members, then that's where you get the traction to actually go ahead and start doing it. Because the challenges and the difficulties, you don't have to highlight, because that will come automatically once you start doing the work. And then you'll have to address those challenges itself. So the key part really is, since you're the vice president, the most important thing as a vice president, you need to understand the motivations and the personality of your president, right? The person who's actually supposed to be the head of the organization, right? So that as a VP, you can best know how to influence that person to convince them about doing these new things, right? The trouble with a hierarchical organization basically is that as a VP, as I'm sure you will realize, hard to get things done if your own president and your other senior committee members, right, don't quite believe in it. So your first job really is to really understand what motivates them, right? What is their motivation? What drives them? And then when you make a proposal or pitch it towards those motivations, right? So if your president, for instance, and just to give an example, if your president is motivated by the desire to be re-elected again the next year, right, then you need to pitch a project to them on the basis that, look, if you do this, it will appeal to the people, right, you'll get more votes the next time around, right? You have to understand what motivates people so that you can pitch a particular project to them in a way that appeals to that motivation, and that's important.
All right, that would be all for the Q&A session. A round of applause for Dr. Shahril. To be very frank, just now when Fatin asked the question on if KNB will still proceed with investing in people, which involves us, as soon as Dr. Shahril said yes, I breathed a sigh already. Like, oh, thank God. And I'm sure all of us did too. But then once again, thank you very much to Dr. Shahril, and thank you for the questions. So another round of applause to Dr. Shahril.
Okay, hi everyone. So my name's Avinash, just in case any of you didn't catch that. And today I'll be introducing our speaker. So our speaker is, the name of our speaker is Mr. Yusuf Ibrahim.
Hashim.
Huh?
Hashim.
Mr. Yusuf Hashim. So, Mr. Yusuf Hashim retired in 1999 as a managing director in the chemicals industry and a retail marketing manager in the oil and gas industry. However, after that, he became a volunteer photographer for worldexplorer.net. And worldexplorer.net is an organization that takes photographers all around the world using motorcycles and 4x4s over mountain ranges, over deserts, and so on. He has made the trip from Istanbul to Malaysia, and Malaysia to London countless times. He's traveled many of the world's deserts, like the Kalahari, the Gobi, and other deserts, as well as mountain ranges, such as the Alps and the Himalayas. He has an intense passion for photography. His expertise in photography is such that he was a part-time lecturer in Open University of Malaysia for the diploma students in photography. He's also the administrator for photomalaysia.com, which is Malaysia's biggest group of photography enthusiasts with over 100,000 members. With that, I'll pass the mic to him to continue his speech.
Hi everybody. Hello, can you hear me? Okay, let's see. Where do we begin? Okay, that's the Sahara Desert. I shot this picture with one hand on the steering wheel and the other hand holding my camera through the windscreen of my truck. We were on a 60-day expedition to cross the Sahara Desert from Khartoum to Egypt, through Libya, to Algeria, to Tunisia, over the Atlas Mountains into Morocco, and from Casablanca we sent our cars back. I don't think anybody else has ever done that before. I mean, Malaysians, you know. So we were not in the Guinness Book of Records because that is only for people who build the longest sausages, you know, the biggest pizza. So our achievement is really quite small. But anyway, in 2001, I think I can remember now, we shipped our cars to Khartoum, and from there we drove all the way across Egypt to Cairo, then across the Saharan Libya to Tripoli, then across the Tunisian Sahara over the Atlas Mountains into Morocco. Okay, so that was one of the earliest things that I did. But let me introduce myself first. Okay, my name is Yusuf Hashim. And I'm 73 years old, grandfather of 15 grandchildren. Yeah. I worked in Shell for 30 years, together with Kamarol and a few other people working in Khazanah now. But I retired 20 years ago in 1999. So I'm from the previous century. I was the retail marketing director before I retired from Shell. And then before that, I was the managing director for Shell Chemicals. And before that, I was working in London and in Rotterdam as the international trading manager for styrenics. I mean, for the chemists amongst you, styrenes are the ones that's causing all the damage to the earth these days. Okay. Presently, I'm a gentleman of leisure, an unconventional traveler. I pride myself at being a photographer, and all the pictures that I'm going to show you were shot by myself. I write for a few magazines. I've written a few books as well. And I'm a gypsetter. A gypsetter is a portmanteau word. Portmanteau meaning it joins two words together, like Brexit, Britain and exit, or brunch, breakfast and lunch. So gypsetting is actually a portmanteau word which joins the meaning of traveling like a gypsy, going to places like gypsy likes or knows only by gypsies, and wanting the comforts of a jet setter. Okay, so that's what a gypsetter is. Anyway, what I'm going to talk to you today about 5 points. I'm going to talk to you about legacy, about leadership, about life and the stages of life, the challenges of each stage of life, and how to live life to the fullest. Okay? Let's begin with legacy. 50 years ago, my generation inherited this country and this world. That time, Malaysia was a nation of rubber planters, rubber tappers, tin miners, shopkeepers, kampong Malays, planting rice. We had no industries to talk about. So over the last 50 years, my generation has built Malaysia to what it is today. We ushered in the industrial revolution for Malaysia, the electronic revolution. We built this country, we built new colleges and all that. But we also left behind a legacy of bad things, okay? We left behind plastics, which is causing, almost irreparable damage to this earth, okay? In this country, for example, we left behind, I would say, interracial tension, when during my time there was none. We left behind we created a terrible education system. That is why all of you are going abroad, okay? And then we had many, many other problems. I mean, we are known as a kleptocracy, okay? Our ex-prime minister is being charged in court. What I'm trying to tell you is that this is a legacy that we left behind for you. With the benefit of hindsight, 2020 hindsight, I can see all this. So now, you, I see in you what I was 50 years ago. You are about to take the reins of leadership from my generation. Okay? So, what are you going to leave behind 50 years from today? Therein lies the secret of leadership. Leadership is all about visioning, about seeing the future, about looking at a place that you want to get to and getting there by inspiring people, motivating people, building a team, using your passion and your effort and your thinking capacity to get to where you want to be. So, as I told you, when we came to this country, when I came, or we took over this country from our elders, we had a nation of rubber tappers and tin miners. You've got a nation of what it is today. Where do you, as our future leaders, where are you going to take this nation? That is the vision that you have to create. And in 50 years' time, when you stand here and talk to the other kids who's going to come after you, what are you going to say? What have you left behind? Okay? That's what I mean by leadership and legacy. Then life is a series of stages or passages. I'm going to talk about those and the challenges of each. But let's begin from the bottom. How to live life to the fullest. Yes, that's the best part of it. Yeah? The rest are all very boring. Okay. This is the Wat Joko ice cap. That's one of the cars that we use to cross the ice cap. It's the biggest ice cap in Iceland, in Europe, basically, about 400 kilometers across. That's yours truly when I was a little bit younger, when my hair was a bit black. And we were crossing the Atacama Desert. That's the Salar de Uyuni, the lake bed of an ancient lake. It's very, very beautiful. Yeah. We were then on a trip trying to drive around South America from Buenos Aires back to Buenos Aires. And that's the Ruta 40, the world's longest, loneliest road, 6,000 kilometers. At 1,000 kilometer stretch, when we were driving, we only noticed 3 other cars or trucks, and 2 of them were broken down. So that's how lonely it is, okay? This is the Gadik Pans. It's also the ancient lake bed, the lake bed of an ancient lake. You have 3 other places like this in the world. One is the Salar de Uyuni, which is also an ancient lake bed, and the other one is, most of you might know it, the salt flats of Utah. So it's the same, you know. There are 3 of them. So one of your bucket lists should be to try and visit all 3. I've done all 3, but I'm 76, 73 years old, so you still have time. That's what it looks like when you're crossing the Sahara Desert. Yeah. That's the Sahara Desert of Libya, of Algeria, and that's the Danakil Hilton. We stayed here on the way to climb Mount Erta Ale, which is Africa's most active volcano. There is a tribe of local people who live there called the Afas. They've been mining salt for the last 400 years and sending it out on trains of donkeys and camels, sometimes 1,000 animals long. So I mean, to see this is really out of this world. But BBC did a commentary on this place, and they call it the cruelest place on earth. Why? Because in the daytime, temperatures are 55 Celsius. In the nighttime, it's 48. So you can only climb this thing at night. So we go to that place where I said just now, we put our things there, and then we walk from there and climb up. Yeah. That's Erta Ale. We camped right on the rim. We walked up about 7 o'clock in the evening. We reached the summit around about 11, slept for about 2 hours, took out our cameras, took those pictures, and then before the sun comes out, by about 3:30, 4 o'clock, we walk down again. Okay? The lava gets blown up about 30 meters or so, and you can't sleep on the ground. You've got to have stakes, 4 stakes with a platform, and you sleep on it. Okay? Beautiful sight. You must make it a point to go. I've climbed, before this, I climbed Mount Bromo, Mount Aegean, Dalol volcano, so 4 volcanoes during a period of 3 weeks. Okay. That's what it looks like. You know. This is the Skogafoss waterfall in Iceland in winter. So, that's yours truly taking pictures of penguins in the Falklands. I just want to show you the routes that I've driven over the last 15, 20 years since I retired. She mentioned rightly that when I retired in 1999, I joined a group of friends who are rich boys with big toys. They've got Land Cruisers, and their aim in life is to drive across every continent, across every country in the world. And I joined them. I said, okay, I don't have any money to buy a Land Cruiser. Let me be one of your spare drivers, and I will take pictures for you for free. So I went on the first trip. I paid for my own fare, and I gave them the pictures. They liked the pictures, so much so that they appointed me as their permanent, unpaid, official photographer. But it doesn't matter because I get to see all the world. Yeah? I got to travel with them through 130 countries across every continent. So just now I mentioned to you that I crossed the Sahara from Khartoum to Casablanca, but over a period of 3.5 months, 4 months, we drove from Cape Town right up through Mombasa, Khartoum to Cairo, and then across the Sahara Desert on another occasion, the one that I showed you just now. Okay. South America, in 2006, we shipped our cars to Buenos Aires and drove all the way around South America through Uruguay, Brazil, Paraguay, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, Argentina, down south to Ushuaia, and then drove up back again to Buenos Aires, about 3.5 months, and shipped the car back. I just want to show you some of the routes I've driven. This is not bragging, but to inspire you, no, seriously, to inspire you that if you have a dream, if you want to have, you have it in your heart to go and see the world, and you want to drive around the world, it can happen. It's just how bad you want it to happen. Yeah? So in 2002, I think, I can't remember now, we shipped our cars to Istanbul and drove back home to Petaling Jaya along the old Silk Road, passing Turkey, Iran. After Iran, we went to Pakistan. Pakistan, that time, we had no 9/11, so we went to Afghanistan through the Karakoram highway, over the Hindu Kush, the Pamirs and the Himalayas, into the Taklimakan Desert of Xinjiang Uyghur, then cross China, came down to Xi'an, Kunming, Laos, Thailand, back to Malaysia. Yeah, it was such a nice experience that we were having teh tarik with my friends in Kana Coffee House. Then we said, why don't we go and drive to India next week? So we went. It took us about 30 days to reach India. So we just drove over Thailand, over Laos, China, down the Yangtze-Kiang Valley, into Tibet, down into the Himalayas, over the Lalungla Pass, which is the highest motorable pass in the world, at about 5,800 meters, and then into Nepal, India, Chennai, and then we shipped the car back to Port Klang. It can be done, no issue. Then we shipped our cars to London, and we took a northern route across Europe, across Russia, Belarus, Poland, Kazakhstan, China, back to Petaling Jaya. And next year, we say, okay, that was a nice route. Why don't we go a south route? So we shipped our cars to London again, and we drove from London into France, into the Alps, over the Alps, down the Simplon Pass into Italy, across the Adriatic, into Greece, Istanbul, Iran, Pakistan into India, over the Himalayas into Nepal, Tibet, and back. Okay. So much fun. When I was working, I took my bike and rode from Aceh to Jakarta, Jakarta to Bali, Bali to Makassar, Makassar to Manado by bike. Yeah. And there have been many other smaller trips, you know, North Korea, South Korea, Japan, Bangladesh, Borneo, Philippines. Those are minor ones, as I call them. And we also covered most of Africa. So now, after having done all of the continents on land, there's only the other continent that's left, which is Antarctica. So, how to get to Antarctica? We started with the North Pole first. I chartered a ship, small ship, wooden ship, and sailed to the North Pole. Yeah? We started from Iceland. From Iceland, we sailed to Greenland, stayed in Greenland for a couple of weeks, and then went on to Svalbard. Svalbard went up to the North Pole, but we got stopped about 800 kilometers from the North Pole because there was pack ice. I will show you some pictures that I shot during this nice journey. And that's my ship, 9 people. And then after doing the North Pole, the last continent, which is Antarctica. So we went to Ushuaia, sailed across the Drake's Passage, which is one of the most vicious oceans in the world. Captain Cook, when he was exploring that area, also got sick because the waves are about 40 to 50 meters high. Okay? So then, I will now show you a few pictures from some of these expeditions, just to get your adrenaline going, so that you have this urge in you to one day, you know, go, because life should be lived. You know, you don't retire and read newspapers and the obituaries and, you know, and volunteer to be your grandson's bus driver to school. You know, that's what a typical retiree would do. Or worse still, upon retirement, most people will get another job. That is something that you have to avoid. What you have to do at your age now, and I'm going to tell you later on about the stages of life and what you have to do during each stage to prepare for the next stage. Yeah? If you want to have a good retirement, where you can do what you like or what you can, what you've been always wanting to do to achieve all the items in your bucket list, during the work phase of your life, you have to be smart. You have to set aside some money, save, set up a good investment portfolio so that when you retire, you can do all sorts of things that you've always been wanting to do. You need a bit of money, of course. Okay, okay, let's see some. That's the picture of my little wooden ship. 9 people can stay in it. That's what it looks like. And that's an iceberg, just to give you a sense of scale of what it is. I've also done the Everest Base Camp when I was 68. Yeah, I trekked to the Everest Base Camp, and there was a picture before we reached. I've also done the Annapurna Circuit at 68 years old. That's what it looks like on the Annapurna Circuit. Yeah. You want to do that? Very easy. Just go out to Nepal and walk up. Seriously, it's nothing. You just must get yourself to Nepal, find out what you need to do. You don't have to spend much. Nepali porter costs only $25 a day. So when I went up there, you know, he carries everything. So I want to take a picture, camera, give him back. And I walk. Towel, he gives me the towel. Water, gives back to you. So it's a walk in the park. You can do it. If a 68-year-old grandfather of 15 can do, so can you. And this is Mount Fitzroy. The thing is to have the passion in you, you know, the will and the determination to go into it. This is Mount Fitzroy. You know, every year, about 50,000, 40,000 people attempt to climb Mount Everest. Maybe 1,000 succeed in climbing the summit of Mount Everest, which is the world's highest mountain. Mount Fitzroy is only about 4,000 meters. Every year, about 500 people try to climb this mountain because it's a technical challenge, you know. They make, you know, They drive pitons into the granite and they climb by rope. And halfway they will sleep in a hammock. So every year, about 400 people try, only 2 succeed. And about 15 die every year. And that's the challenge of this. But for people like me, we just trek to the bottom of Mount Fitzroy and take pictures like this. You must go in autumn when Patagonia and the Mount Fitzroy area, El Calafate, El Charlton, is at its most beautiful. And when you're a photographer, you take pictures at the golden hour when the sun is horizontal on the horizon, and it lights up the mountains like a sight light. And you get this kind of pictures. This is the Monaco Brand glacier in Spitsbergen. That's the ship that I chartered. This one was for about 24, 25 people to go to the North Pole. And that's a typical iceberg in Antarctica. Antarctica has got huge icebergs. The last iceberg that carved off Antarctica was about the size of Wales. Yeah, it's about 200 kilometers wide. And the attraction of Antarctica is the wildlife there. You go there. They say that if you drink iceberg melt, you're bound, or you will come back to Antarctica. I've been to Antarctica 4 times. And this January, I'm going again. You want to come? You're welcome. Okay. That's what we go to the North Pole for, to shoot pictures of polar bears. Polar bears live on ice packs, and then they hunt seals. They hunt seals and they eat seals. And today, the polar bear is a very endangered animal. There's something like 22,000 polar bears left in the world. And all the countries abutting the Arctic Ocean has banned the killing of polar bears, except the United States and Canada. They are killing, for sport, 750 polar bears every year. At this rate of depletion, by the year 2025, 2028, my friend, a very famous deputy director of the Russian Institute for Polar Bear Research, says polar bear will be extinct by 2030. And the Americans are still killing them for sport. The polar bear is a beautiful animal. That's a whale breaching in Antarctica, and we're just about 10 meters away from them. What they do is they send up their air from their blowhole and hurt all the krill. Krill is a little udang, and then they'll come from the bottom and open their mouth and boom, like that. And we're just about 10 meters away. So the beauty about that is that the whale will never come under your boat. Would you dare do that? Of course you can. Nobody's been killed. 1 or twice they do come under your boat by mistake, but no worries. That's a walrus, The tusk there is about 1.5 meters long. That's yours truly shooting pictures of Adelie penguins in Antarctica, in Falklands. Who says penguins cannot fly? And do you know that penguins can only be found in the southern hemisphere? There are no penguins around the North Pole. And polar bears can only be found in the Arctic, and there are no polar bears in the South Pole. That's the Aurora Borealis in Iceland. Another picture of the Aurora Borealis in Greenland. And that's taken from the deck of my little boat. And that's in Iceland as well. This is the Perito Moreno Glacier in Patagonia, in the Los Nacionales Glaciares National Park. One of the most beautiful places in the world. You have to go there one of these days. So over the last 20 years of my retirement, I've been to 130 countries or so, driven across every continent and taking pictures like this. So what else do we have? That's a sample of what it's like to cross the Drake's Passage, the world's most vicious ocean. The waves are about 30, 40 meters. And this January I'm going. If you want to come, I still can take 1 or 2 more. And that was shot in Africa last month during the wildebeest migration. Yeah. Hyena from Masai Mara, that's a zebra. That's his velvet monkey, the eyes, you know. If you look closer, you can see my reflection in the eyes. That's a lion doing what lions do best. You know, they can do it 7 times in 1 hour. And yet lions are almost extinct. That's what it's like when the 1 million wildebeest cross the the Mara River in their annual migration. I went there last month, especially to shoot these pictures. That's a Suri tribe in Ethiopia. You know, in Ethiopia there are about 30 to 40 tribes which have just been discovered about 40, 50 years ago. They still live like what their ancestors lived. And they survive on their cows, and they don't eat them for meat. They drink the blood of the cow and the milk of the cow. But when a cow has a calf, the milk that it produces is only half of what it normally produces. So the Suri showed me how you can increase the flow of milk from a cow with a baby cow. Yeah. So they milk the thing. On normal circumstances, you get one pail, but when the cow has got a calf, they have only half a pail. So to get a full pail, you have to do this. It's a scientific fact, you know, because in Australia, they don't put their face in the cow's backside. They actually use compressed air. Okay? So it works. I've seen it work. Yeah? But the cow is regarded as a clean animal. Nothing is dirty about the cow. They use ash, they mix it with cow dung, and they use it as a decoration, paint their body and all that. Say again? You dare kiss her after that? No. You see, this is the beauty about traveling. Travel broadens the minds, you know. Travels let you see people around the world living their own lives. They have got different religion, different colors, they don't wear clothes, you know, they worship different gods, they speak different languages, but they have exactly the same needs and wants like you. They want food, they want shelter, they want a better future for their children, they want happiness, they want love, they want a better life. So why do we have so much interracial animosity? Everyone is the same, they want the same things. Why should one particular group be special? Yeah? So you have to travel the world. You see people living like this, and then you realize everybody is the same. Yeah? So there should not be any of this kind of I am superior and you are inferior, that kind of thing, you know. They all want the same things. Okay. I just want to touch a little bit on, looking at the time, on the stages of life. That was about living life to the fullest. So if you want to do that, what you have to do is you have to prepare for yourself. During the work phase of your life, you have to save a little bit, work smart. Don't just go to work at 7:30 in the morning and come back 8 o'clock at night. Devote all your life to your employer. When the time comes for you to retire, they give you a bunch of money, they say, go. You should set aside a certain amount of time during your work life to plan for the future by building, by saving, by building a small investment portfolio, so that when you retire, you can do the things that you've always wanted to do. Okay? But if you don't do that, then you become a cliche retiree. All you do is look after, play golf on a Wednesday, 9 holes, you know, read the newspapers, that kind of thing. Okay, living life to the fullest. Leadership. Okay. I just want to talk a few minutes, maybe 5 or 10 slides about leadership, because you guys are going to be the leaders of tomorrow. I just want to talk about what kind of leaders you can be, whether leadership is something that you're born with or you can learn. I think leadership can be learned, and I think they've done surveys, and they have found that only 1/3 of people are born as leaders. The other 2/3 learn to be leaders. So what is the definition of leadership? I've always said that, or I've always thought that the way to define something is to say what it is not. Okay? Look around you in our country today. Look at the leaders who've been leading us the last 20 years, 10 years, 15 years. That's the kind of people that you don't want to be. Okay? You don't want to be leaders who are corrupt, who are inefficient, who think only of themselves, who are selfish. The bedrock of leadership is honor, integrity, morality, that sort of thing, okay? So the first thing about leadership is that I've already mentioned what bad leaders are. You don't want to be like them. You want to be good leaders. Now, I'll tell you what kind of tools you have to become good leaders. The first, the skills for leadership. As I said, 1/3 can be 2/3 can be learned, are learned, whereas only 1/3 are born. You know? So it's still possible to learn to be leaders. The bedrock of leadership is actually integrity, honesty, and morality. If you don't have this, you come to a position of leadership, you will become a bad leader. Yeah. So remember, honesty, morality, integrity, and honor. Okay. I've already said just now, a leader is somebody who has a vision. I said to you just now at the beginning of the talk, that when we inherited the country 50 years ago and became leaders of the country and the world, we gave a lot of bad things to the world. Now you inherit this thing from me, from us, from my generation. What are you going to give to the world from 50 years from today? What are you going to leave for your children? That's the essential quality of a leader. The ability to visualize the future, to have a vision. Mahathir is a good leader. Why? Because 20 years ago he says, I want Malaysia to be this, that, and the other in 2020. Okay? So he has a vision where he wants to go, where he wants to take. So you as leaders, you must have a vision where you want to take your company if you're the manager of a company, where you want to take your country if you become a prime minister of the country, where you want to take your community if you become a leader of your community. So you must have a vision, you must have a target, and then you must also have the ability to inspire people to follow you. So leaders are actually agents of change. Yeah? They don't just accept things as they are. They see a better future, and they can take their team, their group, their followers to a better future. So they're agents of change. You must also have communication skills, because in order to persuade people to follow you, you must be able to articulate your vision. Yeah? You must be able to say why it is that in the year 2020 we must be this, that, or the other. Or why is it that when you're leading a company, we have to change direction from being a normal producer, or whatever it is, we go to another area. But look at people like Jack Ma, for example. You know, Jack Ma was rejected by by Harvard actually, you know. And he said that while you guys were talking about payment systems, I was doing it. And now he's built Alipay. He's now the richest person in China and the third richest person in the world. That's a leader. A leader does. He has a vision, he has a passion, and he becomes an agent of change. A leader must be able to motivate and inspire your followers. You have to be able to coach people. Yeah? You have to be skilled at building teams, and I'll speak a little bit about how you can have this skill. We call it emotional intelligence. You must have a little bit of appetite for risk-taking. You know, you just don't become a follower and sit down there, oh, cannot do that because takut this, takut that. If you don't venture out, you will never succeed. And failure is the best teacher for whatever you want to learn, yeah? Because experience. Once you get experience, you never make the same mistake again. So vision, the ability to motivate and to inspire, and emotional intelligence. What is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage emotions. Not only the emotions, your own emotions, yeah? Your feeling of anger, your feeling of anxiety and all that, but you must also be able to recognize in the people that you lead this kind of feelings of inadequacy, of fear, where you can then use your skills to work into his emotions and persuade him to go the direction that you want to go. Okay? So you must also be able to recognize emotions in others, as I said. Not only yourself, but also in others. And then use that to adjust and adapt to the environment to achieve the goals that you're going to set for your organization. Okay? That's called emotional intelligence. And that's repeating the same thing. You must have sensitivity to see what are bothering people. You must have empathy to be able to relate to his fears, to his anxieties. You must also control your own anger, your own anxieties, your own emotions. So self-awareness and self-regulation and skills, social skills, and motivators. Those are some of the, I have to go quickly because I have very short time. So what are leaders? Leaders turn vision into reality. Yeah? They are people who initiate and lead movements for change. That's what you have to be. You know? You just don't sit down there in your office and, you know, when you become in your work life later on, and just do things. You have to think of new things, of where do you want to take your organization, how to do it, how to influence people to follow you. So you have to engage with them, explain to them, motivate them, inspire them to be a part of something that's bigger than what it is presently. Yeah? Remember, leaders are agents of change, and you have to initiate the change, and then you have to coach people, your followers, to go to the direction that you have determined. So leaders know teams can accomplish more than individuals. If you work alone, you can never get things done, but if the sum of the effort of a whole team can get things done very quickly. So leadership styles. There are about 7 or 8 leadership styles, you know, that you can use. Some of these you can learn, others you can observe. If you look at the first one, participative and democracy, where you ask for people's opinions, you know, and then you discuss, and then you get to a direction that you want to go. But they've always said that if you put a committee to design a horse, you get a camel. Sometimes you have to have democracy and participative, but then you have also got to take charge. Okay? So then you have the autocratic and authoritarian type of leaders, people who order things. You know, say, okay, do this, you know, do that, don't do this, don't do that. That's the autocratic type, you know. And then you've got the bureaucratic type, where there is a structure, like government, for example. They've got structures. They cannot do certain things because they have to follow this structure. Sometimes that works, sometimes not, most times not. And then you've got the coercive style, where you threaten the guy, you know, you say threaten your team. You lead by force and by fear. And then you've got coaching, where, you know, you teach the guy, you guide the guy to get to the direction that you want him to go. And then you have the affiliative, where you lead through relationships. You know? I mean, I'm your friend, you know, let's go together down that direction. Whatever it takes to get them to go to the area that, to the direction that you want them to go. And then there is the charismatic and the pace-setting leader who leads by example, by actually getting their hands dirty and doing it themselves. Yeah? Then there is the visionary leader who is always focused in the future. You know? That's the kind of leader that is very difficult to come by. People with vision, with the ability to foresee the future and to take people or the team in the direction where they want them to go. And then there's a laissez-faire, where, you know, you leave them there, let them do, sign the task. You, I mean, go and sell 50,000 barrels of oil or whatever. Go and do it. I don't care how you do it. Yeah? And then you can then use the coercive type of that, reward and punishment. If you achieve that, I give you a raise. If you don't, I cut your salary, that kind of thing, you know. So there are many, many styles, but that's called the transactional, you know. I give you a target, you achieve, I give you a bonus. You don't achieve, I cut your salary. That's transactional. So you see, you can combine all these ways of leading people into a suitable way to get things done. I like PES, transformational leadership. What is transformational leadership? Transformational leaders are people who affect other people's emotions by painting a big picture of the future and getting buy-in from them to go to the direction that you want them to go. Okay? You can inspire people to follow you, by your ideas, by your passion, by your own actions, especially, And then you have to create an environment for intellectual stimulation, give them opportunities to learn. Let them come up with ideas. Let them suggest things, so that if it is part of it is their own idea, then it is very easy to get buy-in and they are more committed to following you. Making people accept ownership and wanting to succeed is one of the most powerful methods of getting things done. Okay? So leadership styles, if you draw a graph and put concern for production on one side and concern for people on the other end, so you find many types of leaders from here. If you force people all the time without concern for people, like when the Japanese built the Death Railway in Burma, force, whatever it is, get the railway done, otherwise I kill you, that kind of thing. That's 9-1 leadership on the concern for production, absolutely no concern for the people. And then the other end is too much concern for people, no concern for production, all the time, never mind, you're sick, okay, don't go, don't try, never mind, it's dangerous for you, that sort of thing. And then there is also the government type of leaders, impoverished style, where, there's no concern for production, no concern for people, only concern for following procedures, So the middling style is the middle of the road, where it's a 5-5, 5 points for concern for people, 5 points for concern for production. But the best is, of course, the 9-9 situation, where you build teams, there's a big concern for people, good concern for people, and also a very respectable concern for production. That's the best kind of leadership style. And to do this, as I said, you have to combine all the styles of leadership and see which works, depending on the situation. Okay? So what type of leader do you want to be? Yeah? I already said, the basic bedrock of leadership is integrity, morality, and honesty. If you don't have this, you always end up a bad leader. Okay? So you apply situational leadership. You look at the situation and you apply all the skills that you've got, use a mixture of the leadership styles that I mentioned to you just now to get things done. And then you can be autocratic and coercive and transactional when necessary, or you can be participative to motivate people, or you can be bureaucratic when making policy decisions, and you can be transformational when your team is strong and experienced and energized. Okay, so I just want to talk a little bit more about the stages of life I mentioned. The average lifespan of a Malaysian male is actually 76 years. If this line represents your age, okay, you get born, okay, and you die at 76. That's the average lifespan of a Malaysian male. I'm 73, so I've got 3 more years to live, on average. But Tom Mate is 93. Yeah? So people can live to 93. But for the average to be 76, some of my friends have died at 60. Yeah, so average. So work on the average that life will end by 76. So based on that, I'll describe to you the stages of life, okay? The time of death may be longer or shorter or earlier or later. You get born, you have an education. It takes, on average, about 23 years to get through college. 23, maybe 25 for people who do medicine, that kind of thing. But you graduate at around 23. And when you graduate, what do? You get a job. You get married. You get kids. You get a mortgage. Yeah, and normal things that married people, and that's what you're going to be when you graduate. Then you have another child, but it takes 23 years on average for each child to be educated, because now education is the most expensive thing apart from buying a house in your life. Everybody wants to send their kids to a better university abroad, because the universities in Malaysia, number one, for some sections of the community is unavailable, and for others, they just cannot enter, so they go abroad. So some of you might want to send your kids abroad, and the reason why you are going abroad is you're the creme de la creme, so you owe it to society to give back when you come back. So it takes 23 years. So your first child, if you have a child at 26, plus 23 at 49, your first child graduates. I have 4 children, and my last daughter graduated at 53. That was the signal for me to retire. I retired at 53. Okay, those days during my time, the retirement age was 55. So I retired 2 years before time. Voluntary, because there was in the late 90s, everybody was downsizing, right-sizing, whatever. And then they dangle a big pile of money in front of me and say, hey, would you like to go? I said, yeah, of course. I took the money and I went. Because I had only 17 months left to work, and the package they gave me was worth about 21 months. In 1999, which was a tax-free year, what you pay now as tax is in advance, what you pay as you earn. But those days, what we earned last year, we pay next year, you see. So in 1999, whatever I got, in the year 2000, I don't have to pay tax because they changed the system to paying tax in advance. So that was a big incentive for me to go, So anyway, if you work, normally these days, people retire at 65. So if you look at it as a percentage of your life, for working 42 years, you work 55% of your life. And you take 30% of your life to get a degree, which leaves you only 15% for retirement. Okay? That's with the benefit of 2020 review vision. You are still young, you're all on this threshold of getting to work, and you're all excited about getting to work, getting a job, and that kind of thing. But looking back, if you look at it coldly, if you die at 76 on average, and if you retire at 65, you have only 11 years. What happens at 70 if you have a heart attack? Yeah. So, many of my friends, 70 years old, usually professionals like doctors, lawyers, accountants, they just don't know how to retire. They will work and they will work and they will work. And the day that they will die, the day before, they are still, okay, they're still at their job. Okay, I don't have any more time. So anyway, I'll just go through quickly. So implications of retiring at a late age is that, you have less time to spend when you retire. If you have a heart attack, then that time is cut even more. So retire early. My advice to you is, okay, as soon as you finish your graduation, take 1 year off and go and see the world before you get a mortgage and that sort of thing. Just travel a bit, work, travel, and then really come back and work properly and get married, and then retire as early as possible, not later than 60. And during the phase that you are working, you should plan on saving and creating a robust investment package so that you can do what you want to do when you retire. Okay. So anyway, I've already spoken about cliche retirees. Yeah. Okay. Don't just drift into retirement like what most people do. So I retired at 53, and I spent the last 20 years traveling the world, living life to the fullest. And my father, my mother, my sisters, my brothers all lived till 85, so I have another, I hope. So if you look at the scale of the thing, 32 years to age 85, and I'll be having fun for 38% of my life. The message about working long period of time is that you're going to spend 55% of your life working. If your job doesn't suit you, if you're unhappy at work, for God's sake, leave. Find a better job. Okay? Don't just hang in there. Okay, I think I will stop there. I've got a few takeaways that I want to give you, but time is short. So, what I said just now. The world is a wonderful place. Go out there and see it for yourself. Okay, leadership can be learned. Work hard, work smart, save and invest during the work phase of your life. Don't just work until 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, only taking care of your company's interests and forgetting your own interests. Yeah, start to think of doing something for yourself as well while you're working. So target to retire as early as possible, and the bedrock of leadership is what I said it is. I've got many more slides, but I will stop there.
All right. Everyone enjoyed the speech? Yes. I particularly enjoyed the 1-year sabbatical idea. Hopefully YK can give lah. So, to summarize, I think the key takeaways from Mr. Yusoff's speech is that in life we have to be able to, while we must do our work and we will have a career in the future, we must also bear in mind what are our passions, and we should always make sure that our life is not just work, but we must live a life worth living lah. So I'm not going to take too much of the time, so we'll open up the floors to questions.
Hello, Mr. Yusoff. My name is Aishwarya. Your speech was amazing. Totally mind blown right now. My question is, how did you find a right group of people for you to travel with? Did it take you like a long time to find the right people? Because you guys need to be sharing the same visions of what you are about to do at these places. How are you going to go about it? Stuff like that. So how did you find your people?
While I was working in the 90s, 1991, I bought myself a superbike, a 1100cc bike. And we got 7 people together and we started what we call the Superbikers Club of Malaysia. The aim of the club was to go and ride our bikes to China, to India, to Cambodia, to Vietnam. So while I was working, you know, on the weekends, I used to ride to Hat Yai for lunch, you know, and I used to ride to Cameron Highlands for breakfast, and we were back home by lunchtime. Because that bike that I had was a ZZR Ninja 1100cc, 0 to 100 in 2.7 seconds, top speed 295 kilometers per hour. It was the world's fastest production motorcycle. So that group, small group of people were the core of the people that I went with later on. If you want to go, then you must get to know this guy called Thomas Fu. He heads he owns a shop, the Explorer shop in Publica. Yeah, he is the world's Malaysia's most traveled man. He has a company called website called 4x4worldexplorer.com. So I used to go with them. I ride my bike in front of them, and they drive their cars behind. You know, they carry my bag. So I got this group going, and that's how it is. You've got to get friends who are like-minded. You know, don't just stay in the office until 8 o'clock. Go out and meet people. You know, meet people with the same interests as yourself. Create a group. You know, that's what leaders are about. You know, you want to do something. You find a way of doing it. You find people who share your passion. You know, like right now, for example, when I was working, I was always interested in photography. But when I stopped, I volunteered to become a photographer, and eventually I became a very good photographer. Good enough that after 2 years, Open University invited me to teach them photography. So you have to have a passion and use that interest to get into an area that you want to get done. For example, for me, you know, I learned photography because I love photography. I offered my services. My services were good. So eventually that led me to being the unofficial free photographer for 12 years. So you have to find a group of friends, mix around. Don't just stay with your office group. Your office group must be the most boring group of them all. Everybody's out to stab each other. That's what office politics is all about. Everybody's trying to climb on top of each other. You'll find this when you get to work. Now you're still young. Get to know people who share the same kind of passion as you. Go out, meet people. Yeah. There are seven factors actually how you can do what I want to do, like what I do. Number one is you have to have a bit of money, right? So why I told you that during your work phase of life, you have to think of your retirement and start a robust investment savings policy or program so that you have enough income to spend. Okay? And number two is that you have to have a very compliant spouse. If you have a wife that says you cannot go here, you cannot go there, then you can't go. Now, if you don't have a compliant spouse, then you must have the determination to tell her, I'm going anyway. Yeah. So 3 things. Huh? And number 4, you must have some kind of a skill that you can exchange for whatever it is that you want done. Number 5, you must have a passion to do this thing so that you work hard at it. Yeah. And number 6 is this group of friends that you were talking about. So these are some of the factors that you can get to do what you want to do.
Hello, Mr. Yusuf. Good morning, and thank you so much for your speech just now. You really had my heart thumping with excitement. Okay, so I have so many questions for you, but I narrowed it down into like 3 very simple ones. Okay, so first and foremost, of course you've been in life-threatening situations, but can you share with us your most memorable one? And secondly, you spoke about plastic waste. So may I know your opinion on the zero straw motion that's going on right now? And finally, what application did you use to produce your slides? Because it looked very interactive and interesting. Thank you.
When I was in the Arctic Circle, there's nobody there. There's only animals. And there are 1 or 2 islands around the place. And you know what we found on the beach of the islands? Plastic. Fisherman nets, fisherman floats, polystyrene boxes, bottles, and they came with the tide all the way from maybe 1,000, 2,000 kilometers away. So plastic is the worst kind of a thing. And I regret, or rather I'm so sad that I was part of that problem. But when I was working in the UK, I was selling polystyrenes, styrenes, polystyrenes, expanded polystyrenes, that kind of thing. And today, leadership must be responsible enough and forceful enough to prevent people from using plastics. For example, in the budget, I see no incentives for people to be banned from using plastics, for example. There's none. So what kind of leaders do we have? So if you think plastics is bad for the environment, well, for goodness sakes, ban plastics. If you think smoking is bad for the environment, ban smoking. Why do you continue to allow smoking to be replaced by vaping, for example? Yeah? So we don't have forceful leadership to take us in the direction that you should go. Okay? So you talk about plastics. I think plastics are one of the worst things that has happened to us. If you go and buy rojak, for example, they give you a plastic fork, they give you a plastic bag, and they give you a plastic container for the sauce and that kind of thing. So just a little bit of rojak, you generate maybe about 500 grams or nearly half a kilogram of plastic waste. And plastics cannot be biodegradable. So you scientists, why don't you invent something that is biodegradable and replace plastic with something else? That's your responsibility. I've done my job. I've created the problem. Now we need the solution. And you are you are the people who's going to take us forward, in the future. You are the future leaders of tomorrow. Yeah. So what do you have in mind? How do you clear or solve this problem of environmental degradation and destruction? Put on your thinking caps. You're leaders.
Hi. My name is Nigdura. I'm from Jiao Tong University in China. So thank you, first of all, thank you for Mr. Yusuf for the wonderful speech. I'm super inspired. I really want to go traveling now. The journey that you've taken after your retirement is, in Mandarin, we would say 很不容易. It's very not easy, and it's not a simple decision. So, is this a thought or a decision that you've been thinking about your whole life, or is there like a turning point in your life where you feel that, oh, okay, I want to do this after retirement? Thank you.
I was lucky enough to have gone to the Royal Military College. I was one of the earliest students there. And while we were there, we lived as soldiers. We had any RMC people there, you know what it is like. We live like, we live an adventurous life. Yeah? Every month we have a camp that we go to, and then we live like military men, wear uniforms. We live by the bell. We learn survival tactics. We go camping. We go on expeditions and all that. So this sort of thing was already inside of me, at school age. So I suppose it comes naturally that when I retired, and even during the time I was working, I was already, during my RMC days, we were one of the first, in fact, the first to climb Gunung Korbu. And we didn't climb Gunung Tahan because that time Gunung Tahan area was a black area where they had communist terrorists there, you see. So we didn't climb Gunung Tahan because of that. But we did climb Gunung Korbu when I was 14 years old. Yeah, so I suppose if at this stage you are only interested in playing computer games, which is one, I tell you, the computer is both an asset and a curse. I see my grandchildren after school, PlayStation, that kind of thing. During my time, we had no TV. We had no TV. We read. How many of you read books? I wanted to show you a picture of a book that I would suggest that you read, because I read it when I was 27 years old, and it made a very impactful thing on me. Go and find Gail Sheehy, Gailsheehy, Passages. It will speak more about what I was trying to tell you, that life is a series of passages, that each passage has got a challenge, it's got characteristics. And if you understand this, and when you come, you're now in your turbulent 20s, you're just leaving the protection of your parents, the comfort of your siblings, and you're coming into the world. You're now finding new friends. You are getting into a new environment. You're about to stand on your own. You're trying to find your peer group. You're trying to find a partner for life. You might find something that's good for you. You're trying to find a job. And then when you get married in the 30s, for example, you have what we call the turbulent 30s. You decide, or you suddenly, discover that the person you chose as your partner has got these terrible habits, and maybe I made a mistake, that kind of thing. And then you go on to your 40s. We call it the roaring 40s. For men, that's when the 7-year itch or 20-year itch starts. And then you go into your 50s. For women, you get menopause, and you have many changes. And for men, there is menopause, because men also go through these changes. But they never speak about it, like Mahathir said, we grew up together, we went to school together, but why must that thing die before I do? So there are these changes. Read Gail Sheehy Passages. She has since written another book, New Passages. And then she also wrote 3 or 4 other books, Menopause, and Menopause, that kind of thing. Gail Sheehy. The first book that she wrote, Passages, you can actually Google it. You can get it online as a PDF. Yeah, that thing changed my perception of life. At least it made me prepared. It made me understand what each passage of life is and how you can prepare yourself to either take advantage of it or to guard against whatever the thing that's bad about that passage. Read Gail Sheehy Passages. It made a tremendous impact on me when I was in my 20s. I think it will do the same for you too. It was one of the most popular or well-read book, and it's been translated into 27 languages. That's how good it was.
Hello,
Mr. Yusuf.
hello, sir. Thank you for your delightful speech. I was very enjoyed it. There's been a talk about legacy on your behalf, and that for some people, legacies are important to them. But in a world where 7 billion people actually lived, not everyone can make an impactful legacy on them. But everyone wants to make an impact on the world. And for your case, how and when does it come to you that traveling is going to be my legacy, traveling is going to be my thing, and this is my legacy? So that would be my question. Thank you.
Right. Just to inform everyone, this is the last question, yeah? Thank you.
I suppose it has to be in you, you know. It has to be in you. Traveling is so easy. When I was in college, during the holidays, we used to go hitchhiking, you know, from where we were living in Kuala Lumpur, in Taiping. We hitchhiked down to Kuala Lumpur. These days, you know, it's so easy for you to you know, buy a intra-Europe train ticket and stay in bed and breakfast, in Airbnb and all that, you know, or you can even go in camp. So you can travel very easily. So when I was in London, for example, I was working in London and Rotterdam, I never came back for holidays in Malaysia. Maybe 3 years, I come back once. Every time I get a vacation time, I take my family, put them into a motorhome, and I drive to Spain from London. I drive to Austria. I drive to Moscow. I drive to Italy. So when you're studying abroad, don't just mix around with Malaysians. Mix around with the other races, the other people around the world. Learn from them. Visit their country. I mean, if you meet a Czechoslovakian student, you know, why do you say, I would like to come to your country? And you can, in return, you can come to my country. You know, then that's the way. You know, you have to have this passion and put it into practice so that you move. Don't just sit down, mix only with Malaysians, go back every weekend, you know, get together with 5 Malaysians, cook your nasi lemak, you know. Go out, see the world, because the world is such a fantastic place. Huh? You have to go out there, you know. don't just stick around, right? Okay, thank you very much for listening to me.
Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to everyone. My name is Nazrin Abdul Aziz, currently a PhD candidate at University of Malaya in the field of plant biotechnology. But before we started, I would like to say thank you to YK Management to give me this opportunity. It feels like an MC. For those of you who have a Twitter, please tweet about me and then tweet and retweet for my Rizaki. Thank you. All right, let me introduce our speaker. So we have over here Puan Siti Nurliza Muhammad Sahar, who is currently the Director of Talent, Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, or MDEC for short. Puan Siti Nurliza, in this role, leads initiatives in building and sustaining talent pipeline in driving the digital economy agenda, such as ICT, creative, e-commerce, and global business services, just to name a few. Puan Siti Nurliza also has close to 20 years of working experience in human capital, from human resources to talent development, as well as driving graduates and related initiatives. Prior to joining MDEC, she was the head of graduate employability with Talent Corp, and her past experience included working with Khazanah National, PM Care Sdn Bhd, and Maxis. Without further ado, please welcome Puan Siti Nurliza.
Assalamualaikum and a very good morning, everyone. Wow, it put me in a very tough spot. After this is lunch, and after that inspiring talk. And at the same time, it's so, you know, it's like homecoming, because when I started with Khazanah in 2005, so one of my first projects is actually to establish Yayasan Khazanah back in 2006. So giving goosebumps, you know, seeing all you guys in front of me. So thank you so much. PhD candidate, right? Wow. You know, I've always wanted to do my PhD, but after listening to Encik Yusuf, I may want to travel instead. Yeah, yeah. So, and it's so, sometimes it can be quite morbid, you know, listening to you talking about me while I'm sitting here. It's like, your own obituary. So yeah. So I have everyone's attention now. All right. Okay. My name is Liza. I'm heading the talent division in MDAG. Have you heard about MDAG? Do you know what's MDAG? Tak apa, kalau tak tahu tak kecil hati, it's alright. Because that's why I'm here. Because if you know everything, then I might as well say goodbye and just make my way. So today I'm going to touch a bit on leadership in digital disruption. Because obviously MDAG, we are an investment agency driving digital and ICT investment to the country. So obviously one of the pertinent question that our investors will always ask us, do you have sufficient talent in Malaysia for us to put our money here? So because of that, we have end-to-end sustainable talent program and also strategy in driving those initiatives. Okay, right. Without having to guess how old I am, okay, when I graduated back in 1997, so those who are doing, maths and all that, you can start thinking how young I am back then. So when I graduated, it was actually during yet another economic downturn. I was also a scholar with a bank, and I graduated in accounting, and it was very tough to get a job at that point of time. So I'm touching this point to show you about self-leadership. Though you have all the digital platforms available, it still have to be self-driven in order for you to get a job. Though you're a scholar, though Yayasan Khazanah technically is obligated to ensure that you get a job, you still need to have the self-initiative for you to do that. And back then, when you want to apply for a job, so I can see actually those young senyum, smiling and all that will be within my age bracket lah. So back then, when we wanted to get a job, we need to buy a newspaper and start circling the vacancy that we want to, whether we send our application, whether we don't use email, whether we post it, or we go for walk-in interviews, or if some of the privileged one may use fax machine. I don't know whether that should already be in the museum. You have never seen a fax machine, in your life. So that's how it was. But when I graduated again, I couldn't find a job that actually fit my qualification. So I'm not the type that like to just sit down, settle, and don't do anything and just wait for the next best thing to come. So I attended this walk-in interview with Maxis. Back then, Maxis is not that popular. So every time when I go back, kampung, kenduri, weddings and all that, people thought I'm a handphone salesman. So they will ask me, boleh dapat discount tak beli handphone since you work for Maxis, So I started my career as a call center agent. Okay. And I intentionally chose the graveyard shift. That is, you start your shift at 12 midnight and you end at 8, simply because then I get the whole day off. So I had a lot of annual leave because of that. And back then also, when you want to do your banking, you practically have to spend the whole day in the bank, queuing, paying bills and things like that. So because of that, I chose to do the graveyard shift. But now, you are abundant with choices. You practically can find jobs using so many platforms available. Okay? Even I was in UITM the other day. Employers are even in your campus to interview you on the spot. Okay? So, that is self-leadership, using digital platform in order for you to get the opportunities. So I hope you put that in mind. Of course, I'm still having this, terniang-niang what you used to say, you should travel, you should travel, you should travel. But first, you should also, be obligated to the responsibility, accountability. Because if you see the leadership trait that yourself portrayed, one of it is integrity. So integrity is also about fulfilling what you have actually signed up for. Right? So make sure, so many things. Competition is something that I would strongly encourage for you to take up, because now this is a trend by many of employers. It's one way for them to start filtering candidates. Because the moment you submit your interest to be part of the competition, shows how proactive and self-driven you are. And then, it's like cutting short the CV filtration process. Okay, so please, I hope I get to see many of you guys to be part of competition. Profiling, I'm sure Yayasan Khazanah is actually doing this to profile, but at the same time, there's a lot of free profiling tool for you to start having, your self-awareness, what kind of things you are inclined to, and things like that. One of the questions I always get, particularly from parents, will robots replace humans? Okay, what do you think? What do you think? How many of you really believe that robots are going to replace humans? Okay, all right. I'm going to tell you this one experience I had when I was in Singapore in May. So I stayed in this hotel. One thing, when you have young team members, they tend to book some hipster hotel that, when you enter the lobby, it's like, oh, for real, am I going to stay here? So I stayed in this hotel in Orchard Road called Yotel. So the name should already say something about it, right? So as I was checking in and all that, then I put my luggage up, and then I came down for meals. I wanted to have lunch. As I stepped in the lift door was opening, and I was stepping in. There's a robot actually coming out from the lift. And both of us were surprised to see each other, because I think because of sensor and all that. So I was curious, what's the role of this robot in this hotel? So I went down, being so kepo, so makcik wanted to know what's going on and all that. So I was asking the concierge counter, what's the role of this robot in your hotel? So actually what happened, when sometimes you go to hotel, you don't have enough towels, shampoos, things like that. So you make a call to the customer service and all. So the robot will be the one sending all those items to your room. So again, I was like, yeah, for real. So I tried. Exactly, they did that. Then again, when dinner, I really pity the hotel. This makcik really kepo, really want to know more. So during dinner, I went down and asked the question again. So what happened if the robot broke down? Do you have a dedicated team to, repair the robot if there's anything goes wrong with the robot? So what they told me, the concierge, the reception and all that, for tier 1 and tier 2 problem, it's going to be settled by these people. Okay? Tier 3, then only they send it back to the manufacturer. So what I'm trying to allude here, robot will replace the mundane, boring task. Okay? But the high-level thinking, interaction and all that can never be replaced by robots. Of course, they have artificial intelligence to a certain extent, but nothing beats the human touch. All right? So it's actually up to human. How do you continuously upskill yourself so that you become relevant to the workforce? Okay? Let's go down the memory lane. 1995, dah lahir ke belum? Dah, okay. Alright, so 1995, it's the rise of internet age. So Microsoft started in 1995, and you have Google, 1998. Okay, before that, now access of internet is so easy, right? Wi-Fi, whatever and all that. During my time, as I was growing up, when you use the internet, the whole house will know that you use the internet. You will dial 1515, and then adalah some weird sound and all that. And then when you use the internet, nobody can use the phone. So then you can hear my mom screaming from her room, hey, I'm on call, because she's a nurse. Please cut off your internet because I need to use the phone. So now you can even use multiple devices, right? Using your mobile phone hotspot. Facebook, 2004. So I'm sure many of you have watched the movie, Facebook in 2004. So just backtrack. So Facebook is always, it's like a trigger point. It's like innovation is not just about wanting to be rich, wanting to start a company. It's also about solving your own personal problem. Because like Mark Zuckerberg, he's an extreme introvert. How he wants to get to know people. Hence, he created Facebook, and it was supposed to be only for his peers in his campus. Okay, Kindle. IoT, everything now, smart building lah, smart campus lah, smart home lah. You know, that's exactly how IoT works. So let's come back to 2018. Okay, how hyper-connected, it's not even connected, how hyper-connected we are. And that can actually work against our advantage, or it can also be used as an advantage. Like for example, for recruiters, you know, that's when we can start scanning you online. You know, the kind of things that you do on social media, that can also be to your disadvantage. But if you use it towards your advantage, how you do research, when you attend an interview, how do you research a company? How do you make sure that you get sufficient information? Okay, and it also changed the way world do business. You don't really need to have property for you to be the biggest property player in the world. You don't really have to have any cars for you to be the largest taxi operator or vehicle operator in the world. So it depends on your creativity, and that is something that robots cannot do. You know, creativity, how do you innovate? How do you create new things? How do you solve getting point A to point B? That's how Uber started. So I hope that it's not just about what you learn, it's also about what kind of things that you want to solve for the society and how you give back. Okay. Tak dapat sangat ya? Okay. So I'm going to share with you what happens in the digital world within 5 seconds. Okay? It's supposed to have sound lah, but you know sometimes digital also fail you. Okay. So 12.2 million emails were sent, 3.7 WhatsApp messages, some of it maybe coming from you, like WhatsApp yang apa lah, makcik ni cakap tak faham lah and all that. So you have 2.3 Facebook likes, YouTube download, you know, Skype calls and Instagram photo uploaded, all happens within 5 seconds. You know, 5 seconds is just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And all this happened within 5 seconds. And we now have about 3.6 billion people online at any point of time. So hence, it's really critical for you to be responsible in this digital age. How you actually project the leadership in digital age, because it can actually work towards your advantage or towards your disadvantage. And the biggest country in the world is no longer China, it's Facebook. Okay? The population of Facebook is even greater than population in China. Isn't that mind-blowing? I find that, wow, you don't really have to form a country based on geographical location. You can actually stay connected without having to be next to each other or even within the same geography area. And how fast technology is moving. We needed 75 years for Alexander Graham Bell to produce a phone, and you only need 35 days for Angry Bird. Okay? And my son can even develop an app within 3 days when he was 16. So technology is really moving fast. Whether we want to catch it or not, personally, I don't think we have a choice. It's coming. It's either how we prepare ourselves for us to embrace the technology and be ready for it. Okay, I'm going to share with you some boring stats. Okay, mainly because regardless whatever degree or master or any postgraduate study that you're doing, you will still need to equip yourself with digital skill, because that's where the trending says across the globe. So top skill in demand, very easy to remember. Just remember A, B, C. Artificial intelligence, big data analytics, cloud computing. So just now, Intan was asking me, Lisa, do you have a thumb drive so we can actually transfer your presentation to the laptop? Oh, in MDEC, we have this policy that we cannot have a thumb drive. Everything is stored on cloud. Okay? So that's why we don't carry any thumb drive anymore. Everything is stored on cloud. So you, regardless whatever study that you do, you don't have to wait for Yayasan Khazanah to send you for these courses. There's a lot of online free courses that you can actually take for you to master this. Then you become more employable. Not just that, if one day you decide to become an entrepreneur, these are the critical skills that you need to learn. Okay? At my age, I joined MDEC 2 years ago. And the first thing that I did, because I need to also start internalizing my role, I cannot be going out telling people coding is very important, coding is critical, you need to do coding and things like that, but I don't even know what coding is. So the first thing I did was I learned how to code. And I'm a HR person. I'm not from a technical background. So you need to continuously, having this mindset, I need to upgrade myself. Not just your Android, your iOS need upgrading. We human also need upgrading. Just that we don't have that, timer, or do you install it now or later that night, or that is more in terms of your self-awareness. That's exactly what leadership is all about. You need to be self-aware of things that you need. And this just to illustrate, you might learn one thing which you thought that is critical. Within 6 months, pop, another new skill emerge. Back in December 2017, Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator and all that is the hot skill. But now people are moving to UI UX within 6 months. I think even phones, laptops, computers, if it tend to be obsolete within few months, it's similar to your skill. So continuously upgrading yourself. Okay, I'm going to skip this because this is something that you can Google, and usually if you can Google, I wouldn't want to talk about it. Gig economy. Okay, how many of you is aware of gig economy? Tahu tak gig economy, sharing economy, freelancing. I'm more hipster than them. Like, gig economy is a hip word, So gig economy is where you can work from anywhere, at any point of time, anytime. Okay? I give you one good example. This graduate from Sandakan. She graduated with diploma in management. So then she on board MDEC's program, because we propagate gig economy or freelancing, where we help graduates or even talent, to the point that talent can be even mothers, yeah? It can be anyone to generate extra income. She refused to move out from Sandakan, mainly because she wants to take care of her parents. So, but at the same time, she don't stay stagnant. She don't, just because Sandakan, there's nothing exciting happening in Sandakan, so I'm just going to stay at home. So she on board our program, and she start bidding for jobs. So gig economy is where there's a platform, you bid for jobs. For example, data entry, there's like low entry job, there's also like, high level job and technical job. So she bid for jobs. So now she is a personal assistant to 5 CEOs all over the world, and she's earning $6,000 per month without having to leave her home. So employability is no longer judged by clocking in, clocking out. Income generating is no longer about you coming into office every day. Okay? Actually, I feel like I'm so underdressed because this is how we dress to work every day to MDEC. We don't use formal wear unless we have meeting with government. Okay? So, and then to the point that you don't even have to dress up. You can still, generate an income. So think about it. It's all about the skill that you bring to the table. It's no longer about, going out, queuing up and things like that. There's a lot of other avenues that you can actually do to generate income. For Malaysian digital talent landscape, as of last year, we have about 350,000 workforce. And by 1.5 years in future, we need to have at least 540,000, and this is a conservative number. Because this is taking into account that technology is not going to move, it's going to stay stagnant. We will need at least 500,000 of digital workers. Cutting across cybersecurity, creative content, even 3 days ago we had our level up for games development. So we need all this in order for us to attract the Facebook of the world, the Google of the world to come and invest in Malaysia. At the same time, we are not neglecting the human skill. Okay, this is a 21st century skill. I concur to Cik Yusof, like the complex problem solving, analytical thinking, decision making, that is still very much required. So it's not just about learning coding, learning big data analytics. how do you interpret it and translate that into decisions? Okay. So, leadership in disruption, in digital disruption. Three key takeaways. Number one, you have to continuously be curious. Usually people put here, learn, unlearn, and relearn, right? But actually it's learn, unlearn, and learn. You have to continuously learning. There's no threshold towards learning. Even, it was quite counterintuitive, when Cik Yusuf presented and the average age 76. As much as you want to retire at the age of 53, I plan to do it even sooner. But you need to always upskill yourself. I think when he travels, that's where he is also doing self-learning. Learning about other people's culture, learning about other people's ways of life. Okay? So you need to have that mindset that you need to continuously learn. Okay? And a lot of platform now. Exposure beyond papers. Get involved. Okay? Actually, to be honest, when I was asked to speak at this event, I'm quite nervous because I know Yayasan Khazanah has like the creme de la creme, the top talent, top brains in the country. So, compared to me, I'm not even a Dean's List kind of student, But at the same time, you have to also look at it beyond academics. What kind of community programs that you're involved in? Do you volunteer? Because that actually polish your human interaction skill. Okay? I'm going to leave you with this one story. This is a story that have been told by my former boss when I was in Telencall. I'm not sure whether you know Johan Mahmoud American. It's a starfish story. And this is a story that I carry, regardless if I'm going to change organization or that. This is the story that I always carry. It's about a boy, at the beach, and he keep on throwing starfishes one by one. And there's like thousands of it on the beach. And there were a few tourists who were asking the boy, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm throwing starfishes to the sea." So it's useless. There's too many of them. There's too many of them. It's like a drop in the ocean. You're not doing any difference. And he said, "No, at least I'm making a difference to this particular starfish," and still start throwing. So you don't have to boil the ocean just for you to be considered as a leader, but how you're changing the life of people. And actually I applaud team from Yayasan Khazanah because they are actually changing your life. And I hope from that, you always have the mentality about giving back and making sure that you are also changing the life of many other starfishes in this world. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Puan Siti Nurhaliza, for that very insightful talk. So I guess parts of the key takeaways that we could take from his speech is that as the citizens of the Facebook nations, in this hyper-connected world, we have to be very responsible when we are online, when we're surfing things, and then we have to be very curious and to be continuous in upskilling, reskilling, and to get involved, join competitions and everything. All right, so we have maximum 5 questions that we could only open to the floor. So if any of you guys want to start off with the first questions.
Before that, this is my contact details. Because again, in MDEC, we are trying to minimize giving away name cards. So we get connected virtually. Okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Lavinia and I study data analysis. My question is, for someone who's not in the field that I'm studying, for someone who's non-digital, what would you say is the basic or the minimum they should know to appear employable to an organization? Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Lavinia. Thank you so much for asking the first question. Can everyone give her a round of applause? Thank you. Actually, I was so nervous, because you were so excited about Cik Yusuf. Nobody is going to be paying attention and nobody's going to ask me question, And when people don't ask you question, there are only 2 things. Whether your presentation is so damn good or people don't understand what you're talking about. Okay, so at least Lavinia understood. Okay, I don't come from technical background too. Actually, I started my career, I graduated in accounting, a chartered accountant. I graduated with ACCA. And I'm not even a HR person. And I got into HR by accident, so to speak. It's actually when I did a presentation in front of Khazanah board members, trying to convince them to take our healthcare package. So I was presenting in front of a few of the key board members. And as my boss was walking out from the presentation room, the director of managing director's office back then pulled me aside and asking me a very random question, you nak kerja sini tak? So that's how I got into Khazanah. So it's not just about you, of course it's important for you to absorb the technical skill. If you want to choose the technical skill that you want to, in a way, like have at least basic knowledge, first thing is coding. Coding is it's not just about technical skill. It's actually about your thought process. How do you solve problems? The step by step, and also at the same time, it actually triggers your creativity. So, especially in HR, you are saying HR analysis, right? If I got you correctly just now? Data analytics. So how do you interpret the data? Because data analytics, you can use any platform, any system. But once the results are being churned out, how do you add value and give your recommendations? So that's number one. You already gotten data analytics. I can tell you you're going to be highly employable because cutting across any sectors, they hire data analytics like crazy. Okay, even like, for example, CIMB, they started this academy called 3D Academy. It's data, digital, and disruption. And they are hiring at least about 100 data analytics per year. So that's the IMB alone. Second thing that you may want to consider is actually on the cybersecurity. Okay, cybersecurity now, there's a lot of free online courses that you can actually explore. And cybersecurity is actually quite interesting, especially if, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Cyber Range. It's the red team and blue team, the hackers versus the security. So try that. There's a lot of simulation online. Because those are the two things. Coding is a fundamental. So regardless, whatever degree that you are doing, whatever things that you study, please try coding. But you already have the data analytics and the cybersecurity. So cybersecurity is another thing that I would strongly recommend. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Joshua. I'm a medical student. Thank you for the refreshing talk. My question to you is, first I would like to just mention that this is very refreshing in terms of social media, but for me personally, I am quite absent in social media. I only have a Facebook account, which is relatively inactive, and a WhatsApp account. So my question is, do we really have to be social media-wise active to be present in this community? And what advice would you give to a very indifferent person towards social media like me?
Thank you. I didn't get your name. Sorry.
Joshua.
Joshua, right. Thank you, Joshua. Many may not know, because I think many of you guys do your own profiling, right? I'm not sure whether you do it via Yayasan Khazanah or you do it on your own. But many may not know that I'm actually an introvert. Okay, in my daughter's own word, I don't like humans that much. That's what she said. Mama, you don't like humans that much. That's why you like to go at the corner, put on your Spotify and just read books. And that's the reason why I love social media. Because social media allows me to share what I want to share. Without having to really talk to people, for example. But if you, as a future talent of Malaysia, if you ever want to embark into social media, the number one social media that I really, really, really strongly recommend is LinkedIn. Okay. LinkedIn is not just about being social, it's not just about socializing. It's also about networking. It's also about, you don't have any platform in the world where you can ask CEO question directly. And usually they will respond to you. You can actually do virtual coaching because LinkedIn has this feature where you can ask questions, you can request for a mentor, and you can actually be mentored virtually. So at least, it's not just about the presence, it's also about the presence of in a platform that you are comfortable with. So I would strongly suggest for you to go to LinkedIn. At the same time, LinkedIn also have this thing, if I'm not mistaken, is Linda, where you can also do a lot of online courses learning based on the gaps that you think you need to bridge. So it's okay, I think it's okay if you're not on Facebook, if you're not on Instagram or Twitter and all that, I think it's okay, but please get on LinkedIn. Okay? And I think young people don't go on Facebook dah kot. Right? Yeah, you have all this Snapchat lah, whatever, Okay? Alright.
Hi, hello. My name is Shakira and I'm studying medicine in IMU. So I have this one question where I know now for us to find job or anything, we use the digital. But at the same time, what I heard is our employers also use this digital platform in order to check our background, like as such Instagram or Twitter, including Facebook. So what do they actually look into our social media and what they are trying to analyze through it?
Right. Sorry, I didn't get your name again. Sorry
Shakira.
Lah. Shakira, dah tua, kadang-kadang lambat sikit. Okay. Speaking from a recruiter standpoint, it's actually more to understand your inclination, your interests. You know that when you do, based on actually all the social media platform, the first thing that they look into is actually the analytics. Whether it's creepy or scary, I'm not sure whether you have experienced it. Sometimes when you start going to online, and then like this morning, I was Googling something, and then suddenly on Facebook, all the kind of adverts actually come out. So it's more like profiling you. And when especially on LinkedIn, I think recruiters, they always flock on LinkedIn. I don't think they would really go to your Instagram or Facebook and all that, but on LinkedIn, from there they can see what kind of articles that you are into, what kind of articles that you like, what kind of interaction that you do, what kind of postings that you do. So from there you can, in a way like profiling, what kind of talent or do you fit into the company's culture. So basically, usually that's what they do. And now recruiters, they don't ask questions like how, people like me, how we were interviewed. One example, Sunway Group. One question that they always ask is actually, what's your hobby during interview? Because then they know whether you are genuine or whether you are faking it. Okay? So for example, one chap said that, oh, I enjoy reading. So maybe because he wanted to look intelligent, book smart and all that. Then the next question, he kantoi lah because, okay, what was the last book that you read? Because if you're not into reading, then you don't have a clue. And there's this another guy, the answer that he gave, I like playing games. So, what kind of games? And because I sat in together during the interview, oh, I like playing, I think, Minecraft, is it? Minecraft, right? Minecraft, right? And then that actually became a conversation starter. Because Sunway is a construction company. So you get what I mean? Yeah, so that's started the conversation about, I don't know because I don't play those games. The most hipster game that I play is Candy Crush. That is because I was waiting for somebody is late for meetings and all that. So that's when they start developing, those conversations. And guess who got hired? Exactly. So similarly, your presence online will, in a way, see, what kind of your interest, your inclination. But guys, don't fake it. Be genuine. Recruiters interview thousands of people in their life. The moment you say hello, they already know whether you are real or not. Be genuine, okay? Online and offline, huh? Okay? Don't go after this liking all the intelligent article, huh? Just to look intelligent, huh? Please read it, internalize it, and see how you can learn from it. All right? Okay?
Emir.
Any drawbacks while leveraging on technology to screen the candidate?
Drawbacks?
Yeah, the drawbacks.
Actually, it depends. One of my most exciting or even funny experience It's actually when you use you use Skype to interview candidates. You know, and many people have this perception that when you go for interview, you have to dress up like the very handsome gentleman at this table. Okay, but many of because I work in IT line, that may not be applicable. So it's kind of funny when we tried to interview a candidate virtually, and he started to dress up like, you know, like going for the normal interview. And I made a challenge, you know, I was like trying to, again, it's about genuine, it's about being authentic. I asked him to stand up, which he refused to. All right? So I don't think it's going to be a drawback. I think it's more how you leverage on it. But at the same time, it can also be a drawback because if you can quote unquote stalk your candidate can quote unquote stalk you back. Yeah, from my limited experience, I think that can be one of the drawbacks. Right?
I think last question from Iman back there.
Hi, my name is Iman. I'm a medical student. So I have like this idea. I'm just a first year medical student, but I have this idea for a medical software, something like that. So like my question is, like for me personally, I don't really have that much coding knowledge. So how much coding should I know or learn about? Or what kind of people should I get in my team? And how should I go about starting a company maybe to develop this medical software? Thank you.
Iman, yeah?
Yeah, Iman.
Okay. All right. I'm not sure whether you have heard of Malaysian digital hubs. Try to Google it. Oh, that's like the best sentence. Whenever my daughter come to me asking for questions and all that, Google lah, why you ask me? Okay? You try to Google Malaysian Digital Hub. The reason why I wanted you to explore that, because Malaysian Digital Hub is where the excitement of startups. That's where the venture capitalists, the VCs, the like-minded people like you, and healthcare is one of the areas that we in MDEC we seriously look into to be disrupted. Okay, how many of you watch football? I kat tangan sebab I pun tengok bola. Okay, how many of you watch football? I'm not going to reveal which team I support because nanti kita tak boleh kawan kan? Okay, and this is related to healthcare. Previously, you know, when the transfer window opens, usually it's based on, you know, the kind of how many goals that you score, assist, how many goals that you assist, your defense and things like that, right? But now, because of the smart artificial intelligence for healthcare, you can even predict this fine player, when is he going to get injured next? Okay? So these are the technology that's going to be disrupting the medical line. So go to the digital hub, meet the people there. There's one mentoring platform, I can't remember offhand, Future Lab. So Future Lab, you try to get on board Future Lab. If you're into innovation in healthcare or startup, you can then start interacting with the like-minded people, as well as people who are willing to invest on your ideas. And if you go to one of the specific digital hub, it's called Dojo KL, D-O-J-O KL. This place is quite cool. It's near Menara KL. You know, this is like a very green digital hub. So you go to Dojo KL, they have this program called Growth X, where they do it, I think if I'm not mistaken, once every 2 weeks. You can come during the pitching session and you can pitch any crazy idea that you have. Test it out. Because in MDEC, we believe in experimenting, we believe in test bedding, and we believe in sandboxing. Okay? If you don't understand those terms, because I took time also to understand, come and talk to me. So then we can see how we can actually push forward from there. I am more than happy to give you more details. You can see my email address there, and maybe I can also help to connect with a few people. Right? Iman? Thank you, Iman.
All right, thank you so much for all of the questions, and thank you, Puan Siti Nurliza.